We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink.
All right, guys, it is that time of the week. It's time for another SITREP Resistance. It's Wednesday. I am Aaron Sampson.
What's up, guys? Ian here. Barely made it.
What is this? 66? What are we calling this one?
Yeah. Yep, 66. We're calling it year of 2021, year of the rat. Nice. And I have an explanation for that.
Glad you
I don't know. As I thought, it's interesting. Maybe it is the year of the rat. I haven't been to a Chinese restaurant in a while. I don't know. I haven't seen their little calendar on the table. You know how they used to have like the tabletops that would tell you if you were born in the year of the rat or whatever. I am a rat according to the Chinese people. So that's not what this is about, but I have a cool analogy that I learned that is very impactful for the things that I'm experiencing this weekend. And I'll tell you about all that stuff too as we get into this. But yeah, it's weird that it's Wednesday already. It feels like, I don't know what it feels like, to be honest with you. It doesn't feel like it's Wednesday.
No, I feel you.
But it feels even longer when I look to see what the last episode was. And I'm like, oh, shoot, man, I was at your house.
I know.
And it feels like it was even longer ago. I don't understand it, man. I really don't. And I have that whole, this is, how the kids get when they're on the last week of summer break and they all are dreading going back to school. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm at. I'm like on the last week of medical leave and I'm dreading going back to work.
I just saw that Robert and Cindy Safranco, they just subscribed again. YouTube must be at it again and deleting people who've already subscribed to our channel. Yeah, you guys aren't the only one. Check your subscriptions to the channel because I actually I'm a moderator and co on this channel, and I got unsubscribed on my primary channel. So guys, keep an eye out for that because this is part of what we've been seeing with the algorithm. Is it'll say we got 16 new followers or whatever, and then it'll say that the number hasn't changed just because they've deleted 16 people.
Yeah, or it'll show like a -9 for this month, and then it'll say 6 new people. You're like, how's it -9? It's all jacked up. You can't even. Doesn't make any sense.
That's psychological warfare, right? They're just trying to mess with us. Well, I'm not seeing anybody in the chat yet, guys. If you guys are just tuning in, make sure you guys jump into the live stream and say hi so we can see you guys out there.
They probably don't even know that it's
probably
Wednesday.
Hey, you know what? I didn't get an update for Through the Black yet, though, so maybe I got unsubscribed from their channel.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know, man. Everything's weird these days, and
it's not going to change.
No, it's not going to change, man. We just got to adapt and overcome. So, well,
let's talk about this weekend.
Yeah, we could talk about this weekend. I mean,
Ian's already told me most of the stuff that happened this weekend with Simple Street and everything. And it's just, guys, we got to bring this to you because you're not going to hear this. This is stuff that's happened on the streets. This isn't stuff that's being recorded and broadcast, on YouTube to be shown to people. Like, these are things that are happening in the back alleys, in the suburbs, in the streets, in the urban areas. Like, these are things that you're not going to hear about unless somebody brings you that information. And nobody's really talking about it. We're all concentrating on all the craziness that's happening in the world. And we're concentrating on the prices of gas and the prices of wheat and the prices of OBS or OBS board or whatever it is called, $80 some for a piece of plywood. But we're concentrating on all that kind of stuff. Well, the kingdom is moving, guys, and it's happening. And there are things that are going on that would just blow your mind. But go ahead, Ina. I want to hear
True. It's true. It would blow your mind. It's pretty cool. I'll tell you what. I have experienced a few things this week. I went out twice with Simple Street this weekend. The first night was Friday night when we went out, and we went from 6, supposed to be from 6 to 9. We didn't get done till midnight. I didn't get back till 1 o'clock ish, something like that. And it went flying by. Like, it was unbelievable how fast it was. I mean, pretty chill early on in the night. And then as it went into dark and stuff, we started to get a lot of traffic. And if you guys don't know, or maybe you just don't remember, but Simple Street does street ministry down at the RTA, which is the bus transit station down in Dayton, where I live. It's a city bus line, but there's a big hub down there where everybody has to go through there. So it gets a lot of traffic. And so they go down there. They've been down there, I think, 3 years every weekend down there. And they give away clothing, Bibles, materials, like food. They usually have a hot meal of some kind down there. We were grilling last weekend, and you got prayer and all kinds of stuff. And the people love it that they're down there, man. And it's really, it's very, I don't know how, it's surreal, I guess, when you see these people that are, pretty much, if you were in their shoes, you would be hopeless. But these people are not like as, I'll tell you what, than Christian church people, I think. So they're more fun to talk to. They're very open with their issues. And I mean, as simple as your encouraging word, it doesn't even have to be anything major, man, but it means so much to these people. It's like, it's eye-opening because of the things that you just take for granted. I mean, if you have to wait till Friday to have somebody say something nice to you, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I had a couple experiences this weekend with some different people down there that were just really cool. And there were some testimonies that I heard that were crazy. Like, for example, like one of the things, I went down with my camera and just trying to see if I wasn't planning on like filming the whole thing, but I was just in case something cool happens or whatever. We were doing a lot of baptisms on the street, and I like to video those just for, because it's cool. Simple Street has a plan. They would like to get at least 1,000 this summer saved and baptized, and they do something cool. Now, it's not, I'm not saying this is like doctrinally, anything, but what they do is they do 2 different baptisms. They will give you a regular traditional baptism, which is, the burial, the resurrection, as a new man, dying to the old, coming up alive with the new man. And then they do one, which is a forward baptism, where you can get baptized. If you've already been baptized and you want to do another symbolic forward into the destiny, into our ministry.
In there.
Oh,
he froze up. So yeah, go back to where you said about baptizing forward.
Yeah. So the forward baptism they do is, I thought it was super cool. So they'll let you go forward. My internet is saying it's unstable. That's not good. Interesting. I have full bars and everything, so hopefully we hang in there. But yeah, so they let you go forward, and you'll do forward into your ministry, or into the the destiny that God's opening for you. So like a lot of people do them at the same time. You go backwards and come up, then they'll go forward. And I thought that was super cool. And like I said, it's not, they don't do it because they see it in the Bible. They do it because it's cool, it's symbolic, and um, I think it's important to make that step just as important, because a lot of people, there's a lot of people, we all can agree that don't exactly get the full story when they become a Christian, right? They think that it's something, easy, right? Like, hey, we just,
Oh no. Uh-oh. I lost Ian's chat call. That's not good. There we go. Hopefully he comes back in here. Yeah, there you are.
Man, what in the world? Did I lose you now?
No, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Can you hear me? Which one of us has got bad internet?
It's not me. I'm still broadcasting, so it's dropping. You're the one dropping. You dropped the Zoom call.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's true. I am on the Zoom call. All right.
Well, you're back.
What the
Guys,
heck?
apparently we are having some technical difficulties, but we'll work through it. So if Ian drops, we'll keep going until he gets back. You still there? Or you?
Am I not back?
It's saying our
Bro, I'm here.
Yeah, it's saying your internet connection's unstable, but you're just frozen right now. So okay, you're coming back.
You can hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good. Sorry, guys.
Oh, well, here. I wonder if I can stop my video.
Nope. Oh, the joys of the internet. Okay, well, we'll just wait for him to come back in. Yeah. Anyways, crazy things. I don't want to steal any of his thunder because some of the things that he told me were pretty awesome to hear about this weekend. So I don't want to take the stories and tell him. But off of that point, though, guys, there's a lot of really cool things that are happening right now, and I'll just wait till he gets back in to kind of talk about that. But man, I don't know what else I told Ian earlier. It was like it's kind of like one of those things like being Paul or whatever, where you come in and you're like, got to tell everybody about all the good things that are going on in the kingdom, and then come back and be like, okay, but it's time for a proof because we got some of that coming up today too. There's a lot of things that we're seeing kind of floating around that we're gonna have to talk about later on the second half or something when we get past all of this. So we're going to try to touch on some pharisaical stuff that we're seeing with some of the things that people are doing out there. So I see David Arthur is in there. Hey, what's going on, David? He said that's really weird because my broadcast did the same exact thing. Yeah, who knows what's going on. It's hard to tell. We were just talking about how YouTube removes some people from our subscription. They just disappear, and then they come back in and they resubscribe to the channel, and it pops up on the screen. It's like, well, I'm sure they were subscribers before, but they had to unsubscribe from me from our channel, the Holy Hand Grenade channel, and I'm like, I know I didn't unsubscribe from that channel, but it is what it is, guys. We're going to keep pushing through until, we can't anymore. And then we'll go to just street preaching or tent preaching or whatever. But it's pretty cool, though, to see the direction that Simple Street is going to. And I would love to see something like that be widespread. We're trying to see about maybe setting something like that up in my local area. Because I don't have any problem going out and reaching out to some of the churches that are around here and looking for volunteers and stuff like that, and going talking to the hierarchy of the church or whatever, and being like, hey, we need some help out here on the streets. But yeah, this kind of goes along with the point that what Ian's going to talk about here in a little while is the kind of change in direction. We've kind of even saw this with the story of like the disciples, how they were throwing their nets out over and over and over again, not catching any fish. And then Jesus walks up and he's like, throw your net out the other side, and they're like, man, we've been throwing the net out all this time and we haven't caught any fish. And then they throw it over the other side at the commandment of, Yeshua. And all of a sudden they get so many like this giant horde of fish, right? That's the same kind of thing that we're seeing. Some of the stuff that we've been taught in modern Christianity as outreach and as things trying to get people into the church, because it's the lazy way of doing things. It's like, we're not going to go out to you guys, to your inner cities, to the places where people need leadership and they need direction and stuff like that. You guys just meander your way over to the church. And, once you guys get in here, then we'll kind of do all that. And that hasn't been working. It's time to go back to the old. It's like the way things used to be. And it worked. It was just like we talked about the other day about how the churches proclaim their largest days of like baptisms and conversions and stuff like that are during Easter, when all they're talking about is the Messiah, the death, burial, and resurrection. And we're like, well, you wonder why, right? You're actually preaching the gospel instead of Christian TED Talks. So that's why you're seeing these conversions, because people are actively being, seeking out the Father during that time, whether it's just out of tradition or whatever, and you're teaching them what they need to hear. So, I don't know. We're kind of looking at the new ways to reach people that need it, rather than just doing the same thing that everybody else has done over and over again. So let's see what check on the chat here, guys. Yeah, say hi in the chat. Just trying to kill time until we get Ian back in here, because I don't want to step on his toes for what he had to say about the Simple Street thing. Although I have seen with my own with what when I went out with Simple Street when we were in Dayton about a month or so ago. Man, it's pretty awesome what they do with their outreach. Is they literally set up at the ATA, the RTA, the Rural Transit Authority, and they put up there's a fence right there, and they put up all of these clothes that people have donated, and the homeless people or just anybody who's in need comes there. I mean, it's like a really high traffic area, and they just let them have whatever. If they need socks, if they need jackets, they need whatever, and then they cook them a hot meal. And if they have a sign there that says, "Do you need prayer?" And everyone, I mean, because they've been doing this for years, and everyone who works around that area, like police officers, apparently even from what Joel had said, the mayor, he's gotten into one-on-one meetings with the mayor of Dayton. Everyone knows who he is. The RTA, the head of the Rural Transit Authority, and some of the drivers there have said, can you guys get people on the buses and do what you guys do on the bus routes? Because wherever they're at, there's like a calm and a peace, and people don't start fights. There's no arguments. I mean, the police officers have commented on, how the crime rates go down when they're out there on Fridays. And the RTA is like, we need people on the buses, because it helps, that environment that you bring to it with the Holy Spirit and that light. It becomes, kind of chases the darkness away. I'm gonna check and see if Ian has tried to send me anything here. Boop. Let's see. Oh, he set up a new Zoom meeting. So let me see if I can get out of this and jump into the new one real quick. Give me 1 second, guys. I gotta jump back into this Zoom meeting. He just opened up another one. Come on, Facebook. All right, let's see if I can get back in here. In the meantime, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you guys like the video and stuff. It keeps us going, especially when we have times like this where everything is breaking down. Can you hear me? I don't hear you though. Where's your audio?
There, you hear me now?
Ah, there we go. All right, you're back.
Yeah. So when I switched internet over to, I had to switch over to my, 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 I had to I switched over to my phone. When I switched over to my phone, it ended that Zoom meeting that we were on. So
right.
I had to start another one. So I was like,
all
okay.
killing time over here. I didn't know what I was doing. Anyways, I was just talking about Simple Street and what they do and how like the police officers and the RTA, how they've all came to them and told them, like, can you guys ride the transit? Can you ride
Oh
the buses?
yeah, man.
And just talking about how, the energy and the spirit that they bring to that area really calms everything down, and they don't have fights. And there's, and actually that area right there is one thing I was about to touch on, because it's the RTA. It's where all the buses come through Central Dayton, and Dayton is a hub for trafficking. That they've had, situations there where they've seen traffickers, and then they kind of stay at a distance, and they've had people come off the bus that, talk about being trafficked and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's crazy what they see while they're there. God strategically has them placed there, but he's moving them into another area that really needs outreach, right?
Well, the thing is, so yeah, like you were saying, I didn't catch all of it, but what the things that we've heard are all good. They've been down there for about 3 years. They've been at this one location at the bus stop for, I think, for every weekend for 2 years at least, maybe more than that. But so they're pretty, and they know a lot of people. They've met, dude, some of the people on their team, like I'm meeting a lot of the crew since I've been doing it for a few weeks now consistently. Because some people obviously can't help every time. This is an unpaid ministry, right? These guys are doing it because they love people. And when you meet some of these guys, their stories are crazy. So you're like, man, these guys are getting saved off the street and then literally plugging right in, the one guy next to me, I met him briefly, but I met him on Facebook a couple of days later because I want to talk to him more. But he was standing next to me in the tent. We were serving stuff, and I was handing out drinks, and he was praying with somebody, and he was handing out hot dogs and whatever at the time. And he's an older gentleman named John, and he just, there was a woman there trying to get some food, and this was probably like 10:30 or 11 at night. So we weren't still using the grill. We had hot dogs left that we cooked, because mainly the dinner time crowd, we don't just keep cooking, you know what I mean? And we try to they try to close down before, the last couple buses come through, as far as food goes and stuff. But this lady was hungry, and they had like loaves of bread. We were out of buns and stuff, but we had some hot dogs. She didn't want any hot dogs, or no, she did. She didn't want she wanted hot dogs. And then we said, hey, he's like, here, why don't you just take this whole loaf of bread with you? It's going to be extra. We're not going to need it. You just go ahead and take it if you want it. And she's like, no, I'd rather let someone else have it if they can eat it. And which is, how many homeless people, would you think would be kind enough to be like, oh, you want to give me food? No, thank you. Like, it's people have a lot of preconceived things that they think. And when you go down there and you actually meet these people, they're selfless people. They're not the guys that stand on the corner with and beg for change all day, every day. It's not those people. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, we get ideas about things. Anyways, this lady, she didn't take the bread, and they were like, you can make toast with it. And she's like, I don't have a toaster. And they're like, well, do you have an oven? And she says, no, I don't have an oven. And she's like, I'm actually homeless. And the guy's like, oh, honey, he was like real kind, but he's like, just, he's like, we're going to pray for you. He's like, but I want you to be hopeful. He said, I was homeless 5 months ago. So it's like, this guy is literally 5 months from being on the streets, and he's right here every week serving the people on the street, and we can't get people in our church to give up one evening to go do anything nice for anybody, right? I mean, it just seems like it's pulling teeth, What's up, Michael? I see you in there in the chat in the well. What's up, David? Hey, guys. Michael's been down there too. I get to see Michael too every weekend now. So I'm just blessed to be hooked in with these guys. It's amazing. And, everybody's heart is just so good. Like it's just so good to be around people that we all share the same passion for soul winning, passion for seeing healings and freedom to people. It's just cool, man. And one of the things that's exciting is, like we said before, the RTA people, they're very encouraging. They love it, man. They'll come over and get drinks or food or whatever. And we're talking the bus drivers, and they'll say, we love this. We love what you guys do down here. And then they did ask if they could get people to ride the buses with, one person on each bus if they could. We just don't have any. We don't, there's not enough guys volunteering yet to put people on the buses. But I think the strategy is changing because we had some stuff happen this past weekend that I don't think they'll mind me sharing. It's pretty exciting though. So on Friday night we go down to work, and Joel, Joel Burton, he's the leader of Simple Street, but he's been on this show several times. Good friend of ours. He's just talking to the guys that are down there volunteering. He's like, we're going to be shaking some things up, I think, now, guys, because we got invited to a secret pop-up meeting last night. This would be Thursday night in the West Side community. So if you don't know, Dayton is pretty much, there is a unspoken segregation line between the east part of the city and the west part of the city. West Side is legit West Side. Like it's, everything stereotypically that you would think the West Side would be, gangsta, it's actually so bad that there's like no grocery stores over there. It's like, and it's a big part of the town. So it's pretty shameful. And it's not, I wouldn't say Dayton's like a racist city or anything. It's just an unspoken, like the black people live on that side. The white people, it's mixed on the other side, but majority West Side is mostly black, I would say. And we have a lot of crime. All right. It's West Side of Dayton. Dayton used to be an industrial city like Detroit, a lot of car manufacturing, all that stuff. So when Detroit kind of tanked in the early 2000s, that's exactly what happened to Dayton. If we didn't have the Air Force Base, we probably would have ended up just like Detroit. But we have the Air Force Base on the one side, and that's, got a lot of jobs from that. But it's really run down, and there's like nothing. They just don't repair anything. Then we had these massive tornadoes come through in 2019, and they didn't fix anything. Like as I was driving over to the thing we did on Sunday, I was like blown away by how much destruction is still there. I mean, trees are lopped off. Just, whole housing developments are just destroyed and just left there, graffitied up. I mean, there's like, it's insane. It really is insane how bad it is. And like, no one cares, So, but we, he's like, we got invited to a meeting, and Zeb is the other guy that works, they're pretty much the tag team there for Simple Street, but they both got invited to a meeting with the people that run like the city, right? The unspoken, the mafia style street, they're called the street soldiers, but it's made up of like Muslim Brotherhood, Black Panthers, lots. There's several older gentlemen that ran the streets 20, 30 years ago, pushed lots of drugs through. They're like the well-known mafia Don figures in the Black community. A lot of them did some time, things like that. These are the guys that run the streets. They brought in Joel and Simple Street, and they put him in the middle of two tables, two white guys sitting in the middle of 20 black, Panthers and everything, right? And they said they just started yelling at each other, and they were just telling each side was given their rundown on what's going on in the streets. And we've had so much gang violence, and it's minors. The gangs are minors, like teenagers. And we had, they don't even talk about it on the news because it's so bad. If they did, it would be like really bad. So I guess the night before they had the week before they had 7 minors killed in a shootout with 7 other minors over a girl. on Facebook. So it's not even like they're fighting over drugs anymore. They're fighting over just Facebook posts, which we know that's, if they're fighting over Facebook, the war is about to get real bad. Because imagine if you could shoot people. Like, you know what I'm saying? How many times you read somebody's post and like, man, I'm just going to delete this douchebag, instead of you could just be like, where is he? I'm about to, I'm busting a cap at him. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, it's getting crazy. And there's nobody to tell these kids that they're doing, like, this is not how it's supposed to be done, right? There is no father figures. There is none of that. And so these guys are expressing their frustration with what's going down. And they said, you know, it's our fault that our community's at where it is. We did this. We messed up. And we don't know how to fix it. Like, it has to be fixed, though, because they said this is going to be the most deadly year Dayton has ever seen if we don't fix this. Our youth are going to kill each other, right? Just terrible. And so they were like, what do we do? And they're asking Joel, because they're like, we see you, you know, we see you down here all the time. You have a presence. People talk about you. They love, you know, you're doing something on that side. We want what you're doing on that side. We want you to bring it to this side. And it's crazy because as we're at, you know, there's some other behind the scenes things that were happening all that time about being fishers of men that were going on between dreams, people having dreams on the team, people having like this dream about changing bait, that they were changing up their baits, or that, you know what I mean? This whole theme was going along before this meeting. And then they're realizing that the father's telling them, we're going to be switching up bait. We're going after a different set. Right. And they're gearing now towards, how do we get to these teens? How can we help the younger group, you know, which we also said this, we were like, how do we reach this younger generation? What do we have to do to appeal to these people? Right. And because we believe that's the generation, the teenagers right now, the kids right now are going to be, they're a special generation. Right. So we have to get to these kids. And so we what was interesting is that Friday night we're down there and he tells us this. And then literally like around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, a bunch of kids come through, like teens. And so they were cool. They stopped by, got a hot dog, got some drinks, and we were just talking to them and stuff. And they were very candid. They loved what we were doing. First of all, it was really funny because we start talking to these guys, and a cop rolls up and starts writing a ticket to the Simple Street trailer with the baptism on it. So they got a ticket, and it was like crazy because he must be the only cop in the city that doesn't know who they are, right? Because I remember Joel told me the cops love us. They said, this is your city, whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go, you have the keys, you know? So this cop didn't get the memo. He's writing them a ticket for parking. And they've been at the same spot for 2 years, and it's a baptism trailer, literally giving baptisms, and the dude's writing a ticket. Hilarious. I mean, it was just one of the moments where you're like, even the kids, I mean, they cussed at the cops. They're like, this is effing messed up, man. Like, and it was just, it's the stuff that we thought about saying that we couldn't say, you know, these kids are saying it because they knew. They're like, is he for real? They're writing you a ticket for doing this? You know, it was crazy, man. It was just one of the moments where you're like, man, the enemy's going to try to get you in any way he can, right? But those kids, we asked them lots of questions about, like, you know, first of all, there was about 8 of them. And we said, how many of you guys live with your parents? None of them. How many of you live with your grandma or your grandpa? 1 of them. The other ones were on the run. Okay. They were in foster care. They were running from foster care. They had warrants out for them through juvenile court. A lot of them said that their parents were still alive, but their dads were either in prison or their dads were drug addicts, like severe drug addicts, you know. One of the kids said that he's running from, they took him from his parents. His dad's going to prison. So he's a piece of crap, he said, but his mom is a recovering addict, but I didn't get the idea that she was, or the feeling that she was really recovering as much as he wants you to believe. But he was saying that he's running, leaving the homes where they keep sending him because he wants to take care of her and make sure she doesn't kill herself. And he's 17. And he was saying that he just wants to make it till he's 18 so he can get a job. That's what he said. And we were like, what do you want to do with your life? You know, you got aspirations for what do you see yourself doing in the future? And he said, anything with stability. So you're seeing a 17-year-old street kid say he just wants stable life. I mean, the crap that we take for granted, And so we asked him, like, what can we do to reach you guys, and what do you guys want? We started asking like different scenarios. If this happened to your boy, would you take vengeance? You know what I mean? Like, if one of your boys was shot by another group, would you go and return the favor? And they said, yeah, that's just how you do. Like, and they're like, what if that's not how you do? Like, what if someone told you that wasn't me? It was like, well, I mean, nobody tells us that. So it was literally, we don't know any other way, So, and they said, there's no men, there's nobody. And we asked them if they would like to hear stories of guys that were like them, grew up in the streets, had a rough life and made it out. He said, yeah, nobody ever tells us nothing like that. And they said, we just want you guys to come down more often. They said, everybody down here can't wait for Friday nights because we know y'all are going to be down here. And it ain't because of your food. We just love talking to you. And we wish you were down here more often. And he's like, you don't even got to bring your tents or any of this stuff. Just be here. He said, if there was more men like you than down here, maybe we wouldn't do so much stupid stuff because we'd have somebody to talk to first. But I mean, it was like God was literally setting up moments where we were having real conversations with kids, And so then that Sunday we went down and set up the baptism on the west side. So and we asked these kids, we're like, hey, how do you feel about if we showed up at this place? And they're like, where? And we're like, we're trying to go into the hood, like into this park and this corner or whatever. And they're like, no, don't do it. They're like, y'all are cool, but don't go in. Stay on the outside, because if you go in, you're going to get hurt. And they didn't know that they had been requested, by the street people. But it was like, it's one of those things where you're like, man, this is crazy. So then we're down there on Sunday and we had a couple ministers drive up, just black ministers that were like, what are y'all doing here? And we see your baptism. We see this cross that you guys are carrying around, and we hear you preaching. Is this for real? And we were like, yeah. And they were like, man, they started crying. They wanted Joel let them say stuff. Like, they got up on the stage and got one guy was preaching. He was fiery, man. Like, if you go to Simple Street's page, you can watch the guy preach. It was awesome. It was cool. And he said, they were all saying, man, this is so exciting. And the guy gets up and he literally says, I feel like God's telling me to preach this sermon that I haven't preached in 20 years. And he starts preaching about fishing. And Joel and Zeb are all looking at each other, because this is before they told us about the visions that they were having, about these dreams, about changing bait and everything. And I didn't know that either, because he didn't tell me at the time either. So, and I'm sitting over on the side, just listening to this guy speak about fishing. And in my mind, I'm envisioning something as he's talking. He wasn't even talking about this. He was talking about just fishers of men, and it's time to go fishing type of thing. It was cool. It was a good sermon. But while he's talking, I'm envisioning, so 75, State Route 75 goes right down the middle of the city. So it divides east and west. And I'm picturing 75 as being a boat, and everybody's casting their nets on the east side. And that's where everything's always been done. And I'm seeing like that sermon come to my mind, or the story of Jesus when he says, throw your nets. He tells the professionals, right, cast your nets on the other side. And they're like, why? Why would that matter? It's literally it's the boat. We're in the boat. It doesn't matter what side you fish on, right? And they throw it on the other side, and it catches such a big net. It was like, that's what I was thinking. And so when they told us all this stuff, I was like, man, I really feel like we're doing something that we're supposed to be doing. Like, we're supposed to go into this ghetto area where all of us are uncomfortable. I mean, it's weird, dude. I mean, no offense by this at all when I say this stuff, but black people are extremely confrontational. Let's just say that. But it's not weird to them. They're very loud. They would drive their cars up to the group of people. We're like having people, they're driving their car up, like hanging out the window, like, hey, y'all got free food? We're like, yeah, you want some? You're like, what are y'all doing? We're like, we're praying for people. We're doing baptisms. We're doing all this. And they're like, Oh yeah, yeah, can I get it? Can I get some food? And they'll just get out, grab food, and get back in the car and leave. But they were like pulling up, like, and cruising up. But what was really cool is halfway through, Joel just pulled me aside. And he's like, bro, that dope boy that keeps driving up and down the street, he just pulled me aside and told me that he kept driving up and down the street because he didn't know why. But when he got up here, he said he felt something in his heart tell him to give me his money. So he gave him his money. How awesome is that?
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It is crazy, dude. It's crazy. So I think that Simple Street is going to be the game changer, man.
You missed the part where the guy, the one pastor, got up there and started preaching, and Joel and what's his name started weeping because his sermon that he was talking about was the exact same thing that not Joel. What's his buddy's name?
Zeb,
Yeah,
yeah.
with Zeb. Zeb had a vision about this whole thing about changing baits and
Yeah,
about
that's what,
fishing. Yeah, and it was
yeah.
the pastor who came up, who was not scheduled to be there or anything. It was just somebody from the community that
Yep.
came up, went up there, and then basically prophesied over them in this sermon, and it just hit them like a ton of bricks because Zeb had already had a vision of the same thing. It was confirmation for him.
Yeah, it was super cool, man. There was just a lot of stuff that was super cool, man. Super cool.
Yeah. What about the lady that drove like several states away?
Yep, there was a woman there. I'm not sure exactly. I thought she was from Tulsa. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. She came from far away. She works with another ministry, and she's from Dayton, I guess. But she had a dream or something about that intersection, and there being baptisms and salvations there. And she drove up, and we had that going on. So it was just it was a God thing all weekend, dude. It was super cool, and like I truly feel like as I was out there on the streets, I really felt like, man, I think this is what I'm called to do here. I love it. I absolutely. The thing is, when you feel called to full time ministry and you hate the concept of, I shouldn't say hate, I can't get into the concept of the church like in the building. I feel like I really like being involved in a church and having a building, but I feel like we're past that time. And there's so much other stuff going on outside the building, and we just got to get out of the building. And I don't feel called to be a pastor per se in a building. I don't even know what it's going to look like because I feel like God's doing something incredibly different, and we just have to all be like prepared for what's about to happen because we don't know what's about to happen. I honestly think that the people that we're rescuing are going to be the rescuers. We're not waiting for people from the church to get involved and come out to the streets. We have to go rescue our own crew.
Yeah.
Like it's something.
David said it earlier. It says, those that have been forgiven much.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. These people are like diehard. You know what I mean? They cannot wait to be able to get involved and get that stuff going,
Yeah.
So,
well, I just read an article. Actually, it was earlier today because I had seen another one that had kind of hinted at this same study, but it said that 43% of millennials don't care or don't have any comprehension or understanding of a God, and they really don't care if there is one. I mean, that's almost 50% of the next generation, guys, that is lacking even a concept or an understanding. They're not even getting a choice to even choose to rebel against God or love him because they don't even know anything about him. Because I mean, it's the degeneration of society and the degradation of society. It's like this toilet bowl water, guys. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Like it's just going down the tubes, and can you imagine a society in 10, 20 years that's going to be ran by a 50% population who has no concept or even, like at least people in our generation, they may have an idea of who God is, but they can choose to reject him. What about a 50% population that doesn't even think that there's a concept of God? Just do what thou will. That's what's been taught to them. And you do whatever you want, whatever's gratifying to you. And, that's what we're moving into, guys. We're moving into a society that, we look at things, stories like Sodom and Gomorrah or Babylon or these things of how wicked those people were. And we go, how could people be like that, man? We're going to see it probably in our lifetimes Because when you completely remove God from any teaching, even in the conscious or subconscious level, and you're left to your own guises without any kind of standard for morality, then anybody can and will do what they want. Just like he said, there were 7 kids that were shot over a Facebook post.
Yeah.
There's no concept.
Hey, I wanted to say this too. Janet in the chat, she was there on Sunday. It's good to see you in the chat, Janet. It was good to see you Sunday. It's awesome.
I'm glad to see like kind of everybody, and Dayton's got some really amazing things happening right now. Like my, and we'll have to get him on here pretty soon. What was his name that we were just talking about a little while ago? My mom found this guy.
Oh, Matt Howard.
Yeah. She found this guy on YouTube who had a deliverance, a really good deliverance sermon. And my mom sent it to me and Ian, and then she went to friend him on Facebook and found out that she was already friends with Ian, and found out that Ian had worked with him at some of the places, or one of the places where his job sent him, and it had been several years ago. But I mean, the combination of people like Yante, the guy, sorry, forgive me, from the well. Michael, yeah.
Michael.
And some of these other guys that are just popping up and being a part of this bigger picture of the body in Dayton, Ohio is just amazing. It makes me kind of envious. Like, I want to see something like that happen here in Indianapolis, but we know
I bet it is happening though. I bet it is happening. I think you just got to tap in.
Yeah,
you just got to tap in. But that's the thing, it's like a simple, it couldn't be more simple. It's called Simple Street, right? It literally, it's just be there. If maybe I'll play the video that I just did for them, because Joel called it out on the streets. He called it out perfectly. I'll just do it right now. We'll do it right before the break if you want. I just made this little video from Friday night. Yeah, and really cool. the thing that we're going to start doing though, and is I want to record I want their testimonies. And I want short ones. Like, I want to be able to share these with people, because this is powerful stuff. When you hear these stories, they're crazy, dude. And it's so cool that everyone's linking up with these crazy pasts, And one of the things that I was going to say is I think, what if we set up a tent and put up a screen? Because like one guy, I know he was crazy. This guy was crazy. He kept telling me all kinds of crazy stuff, but he was nice enough. But he kept saying, man, I just want to find some place where he's like, I just want to come home with one of you guys. Like, I need a place to stay tonight. And maybe if I come to your house, you could like teach me the Bible and stuff. Like, I can live with you and you can teach me the Bible and stuff like that. And I was like, no, that's not really, we don't do that. He's like, oh, okay. And it was just crazy. Like, they're just ready to go. Like, hey, I need somebody to teach me. The guy says, man, I think I might need to check myself into a clinic and get psychological stuff. I've been having lots of depression and stuff like that. And he's like, and I watched this guy who used to be an warlock talk about spiritual warfare and stuff like that. So I have to check him out. And I was like, well, who are you talking about? He's like,
Ramirez.
Yeah, John Ramirez. I'm like, oh, John Ramirez. I was like, so you feel like you need deliverance? He's like, yeah, I guess, man, maybe. Yeah, I think so. He's like, and Bill Schnoblin. I was like, Bill Schnoblin? You found Bill Schnoblin? He's like, yeah. I was like, I met Bill Schnoblin before. I was like, that's cool. I was like, well, keep listening to those guys, dude. They're legit. But I said, he's like, maybe I got to find out where John Ramirez lives and go to his church and stuff like that. He's like, so I can do that. I'm like, bro, every one of us here, I pointed out everybody. I was like, this guy, all these people, can help you. We do the same thing that John Ramirez does. You don't need to go to his church. You don't need to do that. If you want it, you can have it right now. And he's not ready. He wasn't ready for it, but he just wanted to come home with somebody, And he told me, he's like, I don't want to stay with my sister where I've been living because she's mean and she got a boyfriend that has a Grim Reaper tattoo on his arm and I don't trust him. And I thought that was so funny because he had a Grim Reaper tattoo and he's like, I just can't be there anymore because he has a Grim Reaper tattoo on his arm and I just can't trust him. And I was like, but if you like going to a bar and hearing stories, you will love street ministry. I guarantee it, because you have the ending, that they're all wanting, that they don't want at the bar necessarily. Right. Oh man, it's super fun. It was killing me. That guy was killing me.
Well, Christina Smith in the live chat said, I've lived on the west side and the east side of Columbus, in the past. The young people have no hope. They can't see past the day. They need men to show them love, so they can accept the Father's love. And I absolutely agree. And that reminds me a lot. I'm contemplating on a kind of video that I want to do. It's called 7 Hours Without Hope. And it's based around the story or the parable of the workers of the field. And it's where the masters, Jesus is telling this, and he's saying this is like the kingdom of heaven. And he says the master goes out and he needs workers for his field. And he, at 8 a.m. in the morning, I'll put it in American terms, right? At 8 a.m. in the morning, he goes out and he finds a group of people, and he says, I'll pay you a certain wage if you guys work a full day's work. They agree, and they go out and work. He needs more workers in the field, so he goes out at noon, and he says, and he finds a group of people and says, I will pay you a full day's labor if you come out and work the field for the rest of the day. And they go with him, and then he goes out on the last hour at like 4 o'clock, and he goes and he searches for these people that he needs to work for this last hour. And he finds these people, and then, they work for an hour. And then it says in there that he pays the people who worked the last first. To pay the last to first. And as the people who were paid in the beginning, or who agreed to it, to the full 8 hours, they start murmuring and complaining, because how can you pay the people who worked an hour the same as the wages as us when we worked for 8 hours? And of course, you can look at it. I mean, most people that preach on this, they preach on it, say, to much is given, much is, required, and so on and so forth. But I look at it on an unspoken part there, that those people were working, they were 7 hours without hope. And they were sitting there with, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to take care of things? I don't have a job. What is going to happen? Right? That's how a lot of us are. We're 7 hours without hope before we met the Messiah. And he gave us that. And when you get to that point where you're 7 hours without hope, you know what it's like to not have hope. And you know what it's like, the empathy that you get for those other people out there who don't have hope. And, I really want to write a whole thing on this, but that is really what it's about, guys. There are people that you can go out there and you can find Christians who say that I've been a Christian my entire life, and I've done this, and I follow the Torah, and I do all kinds of things, which is fantastic, right? But there also tend to be the ones that I see murmur and complain the most about everyone else not doing what they're required to do, and the agreement is that God says, you guys agreed to work this, right? You signed on for this, regardless of what the payment. You didn't ask for more to work, more hours or whatever. You agreed. This is my money, my field, and as God puts it, it's my grace. He compares this to the grace and salvation that's granted to all of us. He gets to choose whoever he wants to. And, the rules are set by him. So how do we get to stand and murmur and complain? But what I did notice is those people who are 7 hours without hope, they probably worked as hard or as the people who worked for the 8 hours in that 1 hour's time. Because just like I felt when I realized I wasted so much time, I had to make up for that lost time, and I believe that all those people that knew what it was like to come out of that 7 hours without hope, they wanted to work 8 times as fast as everybody else because they wanted to help all the other people, So I think that's where we're at right now, guys. We're going to see a lot more of this. These people who are getting conversions they're changing, and things are immediately falling into place for them. What used to take years upon years upon years of healing and deliverance and self, growth and things like that, God is downloading into these people immediately, and they're turning around and they're going and preaching. It's almost like the Samaritan woman, right, who ran up to Jesus, and she ran out to Samaria, and she told everybody, he knows everything about me. Like that's exactly what's happening right now out in the world. We can be a part of the group that is hired on from the 8 a.m., or we can be a supportive to the group that was just hired on for the last hour, because that's where we're at. So I just had to throw that in there, man.
No, you're good. I'm going to share this. Ready? So I just did this little video, show you what happened on Friday. Can you see that in the screen?
You're good.
Is it full screen?
Yeah, it's full screen.
All right. You got audio?
Yep.
was the center of every community. And we fell into unbelief. We fell into complacency and stagnation. We overcomplicated the process of salvation and what it was to be redeemed. And so they lost faith in God because they lost faith in us. Amen. And we turned them over to government programs. It's cool with me. I know you got to do what you got to do. But it starts with us. And I don't want to turn another youth, another generation over to some program that's only going to mislead them and misguide them and not give them what they really need. We have one simple answer, and it's Jesus. And to give them Jesus consistently.
Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love.
It's awesome, man. I think that's a good segue for what we're going to talk about in the second hour. So we should probably just go to our commercial and then come back and talk about it.
Well, I wanted to, we could talk about it. I wanted to, since we had that little mess up in the beginning with the time and or with the internet, to go a little bit over, because I still want to say something about what happened. The reason I call this the Year of the Rat, the reason I called the episode the Year of the Rat, is because I heard, so as all this was going on downtown, I listened to some devotion stuff and some podcasts that I like and everything on top of all that. And I had a meeting this week with, a pastor talking about some ministry opportunities and things like that in this inner city. And one thing that was said was like, which it wasn't meant to be like this. And I know that it's going to come off wrong, but there was a urgency that I was saying, like, why can't we be down there doing this, and this right now? And they're in the process of making a huge community center church plant thing down there. And so it was like, I know it's coming, but what can we do now? Like what? And what was said was, well, when we go down there and we give them, this and that, and we pray for them and we get, this stuff happens, where do we send them? Because there's nothing for them there and they have no way to get out of there. So where do we send them to be discipled and to, continue this, or they're just going to go and shoot right back up if they go back to the house where they're at, or, you know what I mean? And it's not a bad question. It's just, it's a bummer question. Cause you're like, man, it's almost like, I almost felt like he was saying to me, but I know he wasn't, we can't do anything yet. I think he was just vocalizing that he has a long-term vision and I have a short-term vision. And I think that's good that we have both people like that, because I wouldn't be thinking long-term like he is. He's thinking stability, complete restructuring of the city, and all these different things to elevate these people back up into society. I'm just thinking about a rescue. And the thing that was interesting is on this podcast I was listening to, he started talking about this experiment that they did with this. It's called the rat or the despair and hope experiments with rats. And what they did was they took like 9 rats, put them in each individually into buckets of water to see how long they could swim before they died. And what they would do, like some of them of the first 9 would swim around, and some of them went under to see what was underneath the water for a second, and then they came back up. And all those rats died within a couple minutes because they realized there was no escape. They couldn't get out. They just died. Well, then they had some domesticated rats that they tried this with, and some lived longer than others, but they all eventually died, and it was within a few short minutes. So then they took out these wild rats that, straight up wild, right? Put them in the water. They started doing the same thing, but right before they died, he pulled them out, dried them off, and held them and nurtured them until they were, back to, full life or whatever. And then he did it again. And this time they swam for 2 days. And that's like a massive amount of difference, right? You have 2 minutes, 2 days off of one rescue. And what he was saying was, psychologically, these rats had in the back of their mind, the ones that had no hope, they realized there was no way out. They died. They gave up. The ones that had been rescued at the moment of when they least expected it, somehow something in their brain gave them hope to keep going. And they lasted for 2 days before they drowned. But think about that. I'm not saying we have to let them drown, but I'm saying, like, think about what that means. These hopeless people on the street, they're dying. They're waiting for someone to step in with an answer, like Joel said, Christ, right? And we have one answer for everything. Jesus Christ is the answer, and he's the immediate answer. And he never said, don't witness to that person because you don't have any long-term strategies to keep them in line, right? You just go rescue them. And the fact that we could get to these people and give them a rescue, that's what that is on the street corner. When they see Simple Street shop set up, it's like a temporary rescue for them. That one message or word or the food and the hug that they get on Friday night keeps them going all week, And if no one's going to be there to do that, then all these people are going to die, And so, yeah, it looks like it's really a big, impossible feat that we could reach all these people with just a handful of guys in a tent. But if we can get the word out that God is doing something new, like we all preach this Isaiah message where, behold, I do something new, if you would only see it, right? Now we just need to make people see it because it's happening. The revival is happening, and it's happening outside of the church. And it's happening with people who don't have good theology. They don't have any theology. They just have a testimony of how they were dying and someone rescued them, And I think it's super easy. Like, God has made it. We're in the most difficult time to be alive, most challenging time for warfare. Yet our job has been made so easy because everyone out there is looking for you. You don't have to find anybody. They literally are. You will have no problems finding them. I mean, there was this one thug kid. I got to talk to this guy, John, because he's the guy that was telling you about that said he was homeless. Anyways, he's just standing there, and this one little kid comes up, and he's probably, a teenager. He's got no shirt on and stuff. He's a thug, and he came through by himself, and he wanted a hot dog. So they gave him a hot dog, and they're like, you need prayer or anything? He said, nah, just kept walking. He gets to the corner, turns around, comes back, and says, yeah, I need prayer. And I don't know what he prayed for, but I thought it was cool that he came back, And I was like, man, see, these people, they want it so much more than we're willing to go out. Like if it was me, like I know I was out there 2 nights, but I was probably out there from 6 to midnight one night, and then from 3 till 8 on Sunday, and it went flying by. Like I can already tell that my wife's going to have a problem keeping me inside this summer because I'm going to be down there for a long time, and I'm not going to pay attention to time. I can guarantee it. So I'm going to have like a bracelet that buzzes or like a tracker on my phone so my wife knows where I'm at, or maybe even a buddy that just follows me around so that my wife can talk to me because I'm not going to be paying attention.
Have you called?
Dude, we need people, man. It's so important. I'm about to just switch over everything I'm doing and put it in behind Simple Street just because I feel that passionate about actually doing something. And I feel like we were cool doing the online. Like everyone on here has been mentored or learned something from an online ministry. There's nothing wrong with that. I love it. I hope it just keeps going. I also feel like we've neglected to do things in real life because we've gotten too comfortable online. We think that the chat room is our mission field, and it is not our mission field. You might post some cool stuff and get a lot of, likes or thumbs up or whatever, and that's awesome. That's part of your daily life in the 21st century. That is not a missions field. And I feel like we We expect the Holy Spirit to come and fill us every day till we're overflowing. But the problem is we don't have an outlet to go and give that to. Who gets the access? You know what I'm saying? We need to have somewhere for it to overflow to. And we need people like, Aaron, you're in a different city, but man, we should go and do it in your city and I'll go with you. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not hard. You get a tent, you start doing it. That's what you do. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they started it and they just consistently were there. And that's why people know, they're like, man, they're going to be here. They're probably going to be here next week. They're here every other week. You know what I mean? Consistency is what people need. They need to know that you care, and they need to know that you truly care enough to keep doing it. Right? Every one of these people that are on the street, all these kids without a father, without a safe, structured environment, lack structure. They lack motivation. They lack mentorship. They lack stability, and they need something to be consistent. And that's you, And as bad as you think your life is, and maybe you're thinking like, man, I'm in constant warfare. Yeah, go help somebody get out of theirs, and yours might go away. That warfare might be there to prevent you from getting out. You know what I'm saying? It's like, those people that have agoraphobia, they're afraid to leave their home. They're afraid to be out in the sunlight and all that stuff, Like, I think, our friend Rob, what's his name? I'll draw a blank. He was on our show. Rob Baxter.
Which we got we have a handful.
Yeah, we've had so many. Well, Rob Baxter, man, his wife got agoraphobia, and she hasn't left her house. Like the last time I talked to him, for 2 years, she's been in the basement the whole time. She's afraid to come out, and it's like, what? That's demonic. But like, these things come to prevent you from getting out and helping people, to do things, interacting with other people. You become focused on your own issues, your own problems, right? We got to get away from that crap. Everyone's got a problem. This will go into our next hour too. We'll be talking about this. There is no condemnation. Every single one of us is dealing with stuff. You don't have to be free from all of your stuff to go help somebody. God, that's not a requirement. So if you're not dying, help someone else not die. That's, I think we said this a couple weeks ago. If you're not being shot at, shoot back. Right? So if you're not in direct warfare right this second, you should be attacking. Yeah, you need to be attacking the enemy and taking back. So let's go to break.
Yeah. All right, guys, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Allow me to introduce you to what the world has been waiting for. I've come to herald the arrival of a generation with the capacity to see God's dream become man's reality. Oh, can you see it? We are the ones who refuse to blend in or fade out. We can't stay hidden in the church, and we won't stay silent in the streets. We value faith over fortune. We long for presence, not popularity. We'll take the kingdom over comfort, and we trust the gospel more than the government. There is something in our DNA that can't accept the status quo, business as usual, things as they are. We will never fit in the box marked normal. But you know what? We never really wanted to. We've watched our parents and peers give their lives to a cultural system designed for our destruction. So our minds have been made up. We are persuaded and convinced that the freedom Christ promised is the freedom Christ purchased with his blood on that cross. So that cycle of broken people breaking people, it ends with us. With suicide, depression, sexual dysfunction, and substance addiction beckoning and threatening the destiny inside us that cries to be realized, we say no to moral degeneration. We say no to a world that pretends that sin is no big issue, friend. Sin is the only big issue. We say no to the idea of just fitting in to this broken system. The time for change is now. Let the world choose its own path, but let them know that we are the resistance. Destruction is here if we'll see it. And our time is now if we'll take it.
All right, and we're back for second hour, guys. If you're still with us, make sure you jump up in the chat and say you're still here so we can fill the chat bar back up. All right. Cool. Yeah, so thanks for joining us on the second hour, guys. We got a lot to cover here, but I do want to kind of touch on a couple points that people were talking about, about what to do. When you are in this situation, when God has a calling for each and every one of us, is about discipleship. Right? This is how it works. It works through friendships. It works through coworkers, through your family members, through people in your life that God puts in your life. And if they haven't appeared yet, sometimes that's because it's not your time. You're still working through things. So this was something we're going to touch on, where we were talking about dealing with some of the things that we deal with on our own level before we can really go out there. But God will work on the level that you're at is one of the awesome things. So, you kind of have to self-evaluate and figure out where you're at, what kind of things you need to work on. We've talked about getting your house in order, and we've seen a lot of really, really cool things. One of the testimonials that I've had recently was I work in a garage full with about 40 other guys. And I've had conversations biblically with maybe 2 or 3 of those guys. And here recently I've been training with a group of new people that are coming into my work. And I have found out just kind of through conversation with these people, just, getting to know them and stuff, that 5 of the 8 are Christian males. And not just your everyday pew sitting Christian males. These are people that have heard Rob Skiba's stuff. They understand Nephilim. They understand conspiracy theories and, Freemasonry and all this crazy stuff that I'm like, I couldn't throw a rock and hit somebody, in a crowded room that knew any of this stuff. And now there are 5 that are now working out of my garage. I didn't have anything to do with this. There's something going on that the Holy Spirit is doing something, with this group of guys. So it's gonna be cool because the next Mission 242 event we have, I'm gonna have a lot more of my employees, guys that I work with that are gonna be showing up at our stuff. So there's some crazy stuff that's happening right now. I mean, when you look at everything that's going on in Dayton, where you don't really have to do anything, you just have to be willing to be a part of something. And then God starts dropping all of these different people around you. And you're like, where did all these people come from? We've had many different instances like that in my own life. And I know Ian has as well, where he's finding people that, he worked with or, that he's seen around.
Well, I'll tell you right now that one of the people is Matt Howard, the guy you were just talking about doing the deliverance teachings. Matt Howard used to work at Walmart, he might still work there. He's a manager and I'm a vendor. And so we ran across each other years ago. And we talked about Now You See TV together because he was watching that at the time when I was on that. Well, it was 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. And it was just it was one of them weird things where you're like, wow, it's another dude that knows what I'm talking about. And we didn't see each other very often because he switched shifts. And so we kind of only saw each other kind of like maybe once a week instead of every other day. But yeah, he's been a cool dude. And I think I invited him to the SITREP Resistance page a while ago. And he's been in there for a while. I think he's been doing some kitchen talks or something is what he calls it. Something like that. Yeah. Holy Ghost Kitchen, or I can't remember what I don't know. Hey, Matt, if you're watching this, man.
So it's cool, guys. The real thing is, again, that we have to target and talk about is about faith and belief. If you look at the world situation and you say, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, we're putting a restriction on what God can do in our lives. It says that anything is possible through the Father, right? We may not be able to do stuff, but that doesn't mean that God can't. But our faith can empower the change inside of our lives. So we need to stop with the destructive nature that the world has put around us that says we can't do things, we can't do this, we can't do that. I used to joke about it and ask people if they were an American or an American, like we live in a free world nation. We can kind of do whatever, right? But we are empowered by the Holy Spirit to do anything, right? That is in the will of the Father. And, it's just putting ourselves in a position where God can use us is the most important thing. And when we have that mentality of, I can't do this, I can't do this. Like I said, God is trying to do stuff, guys. And there are people in our life that have the sin virus that need help, right? And the church, the body, I'm not talking about the building, is supposed to be a hospital for broken and sick people. And that's what it needs to be. We've had this ideology that the church is a place where we go and entertain and have worship and we get our Christian TED Talk. But the real body is supposed to be out there, is supposed to be, reaching to the people who are brokenhearted, who are hurt, pointing them in the direction of the Messiah, healing, deliverance. All of those things are meant for us to do to other people. And part of what I'm seeing in the communities is kind of what I wanted to touch on tonight. Like I said, we're kind of like Paul, where it's like, oh, we've seen such and such and such and such. You should see all these things that are happening out in the church of such and such or whatever. And then he has to come in with a rebuke. The thing that I'm seeing right now that has been problematic for a lot of the communities that are floating around right now is this pharisaical ideology, this like pharisaical idea. And people don't even see it, this religious spirit. And I really want to touch on it with a couple of scriptures because I think Matthew, in the book of Matthew, hits it at a couple different levels. So let me read this out of Matthew 15. And some of you guys may be aware of some of these, but when Jesus is talking about Pharisees and scribes, they were the people who were emulated as being the epitome of Jewish belief at the time. Everyone was trying to attain what the Pharisees and the scribes did, but Jesus several times calls them hypocrites. And I see a lot of hypocritical behavior in some of the communities that I'm involved in. But I'll start with this, Matthew 15. And the Pharisees and scribes who were from Jerusalem came to Yeshua saying, "Why do your disciples violate the traditions of the elders? Why do they not wash their hands whenever they eat bread?" Yeshua answered and said to them, "Why do you violate the commands of God for the sake of your traditions?" Does this sound familiar, guys? We see this a lot. "For God has said, 'Honor your father and your mother,' and whoever reviles his father and mother shall surely die. Now you are saying, 'Everyone who will say to his father or mother, my offering is anything by which you made profit from me, should honor neither his father nor his mother,' and you nullify the word of God because of your traditions. Phonies or hypocrites, Isaiah prophesied well against you and said, 'This people is honoring me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And they revere me in vain while they teach the doctrines and commandments of man.' And he called the crowd and he said to them, 'Hear and understand, it is not the thing that enters in the mouth that defiles a man, but the thing that proceeds from the mouth that defiles man.' Then his disciples approached him and were saying to him, 'Do you know that the Pharisees who heard this saying were indignant?' They were upset. But he answered and said to them, 'Every plant that my Father who is in heaven has not planted will be uprooted.'" He's telling them, it doesn't matter, guys. If they're a false teacher, if they're whatever, they're not of the Father didn't plant them, let the Father root them up, right? Don't worry about them. He says, "Let them alone. They are blind guides of the blind. But if a blind man leads a blind man, both will fall into the pit." Says Simon Peter or Shimeon Kepha answered to him and said, "My Lord, explain to us this parable." But he said to them, "Are you still also not understanding?" I like one of the translations says, "Are you guys still, or why are you so dull?"
So dull, yeah.
He says, "Do you
why
not know?"
are you still so dull? But that, after watching The Chosen, I totally get it. These guys, I mean, it makes me feel good, to be honest with you, because I'm like, man, I feel like a loser sometimes, dude. I'll tell you, and I just because of how stubborn and how bullheaded and dumb can be about stuff. When you're passionate and you're adamant about something, and then you find out you're wrong. And then you got a pride thing because you're like, man, I dug my hole deep. And now I either have to just come clean and roll with it, or it's like that video, right, that I made with the door closing. What do I do in this moment when the guy's like, you tried to open and it's a push? No, it goes both ways. No, it doesn't. Doesn't go both ways. Just end it and say you were wrong. Don't be stubborn because it gets bad. You lose no matter what, right?
So anyways, but he said to them, do you still not understand, basically? "Do you know that anything that enters the mouth goes into the belly and is cast out from here in excretion? Anything that proceeds from the mouth proceeds from the heart, and it defiles a man. For from the heart proceeds evil thoughts, adulteries, murder, fornication, thefts, lying, testimonial blasphemies. These are the things that defile a man. But if a man will eat after not washing his hands, he is not defiled. But Yeshua went out from there and came to, this is why this is important, right? But Yeshua went out from there, and he came to the borders of Sidon, I think is how you pronounce it. And behold, a Canaanite woman from those borders came forth crying out. And she said, "Have pity on me, Lord, son of David. My daughter is badly driven by a demon." She knew, like she already had an understanding who he was. And when Jesus spoke to, I think it was Peter, and he asked him, "Who am I?" And he says that you're the son of God. And he said, only the Holy Spirit could have led you to that understanding. But she comes up to him and she recognizes that he is the son of David, right? That there is something about him. And he says, but he did not give her an answer. And his disciples came and begged him, and they were saying, "Send her away, for she is crying after us." But he answered and said to them, "I am not sent except to the sheep that have strayed from the house of Israel." But she came and worshipped him and said, "Lord, help me." And he said to her, "It is not good to take children's bread and cast it to the dogs." But she said, "Yes, my Lord, even the dog eats from the crumbs that are from their master's table, and they live." But then Yeshua said to her, "O woman, great is your faith, and it will be done as you will." And her daughter was healed from that moment, right? So that the disciples at that point were trying to push her away and saying, she's not part of our people. And even Jesus was not supposed to be for anybody else but the tribe of Judah at that time. Then he sent his disciples out for the lost tribes, or what they called the Gentiles. But at this point, her faith was so great that even Jesus recognized, she reminded him of these promises, of these things, and Jesus honored that, right, because of her faith. This happens over and over and over and over again. We talk about faith and belief, guys. This is important. The next is Matthew 23. This is what I call the woes, right? We know the Beatitudes, we know the blessings, all these kind of things, but this is the woes. And you have to place yourself and listen to this. And this is something to analyze in your own walk and say, do I fit into any of these categories? Because this is chastisement against the people who proclaimed to be the religious at the time. So it says, when Yeshua spoke to the crowd and with his disciples, he said to them, "The scribes and the Pharisees have sat on the throne of Moses. Everything, therefore, that they tell you, observe and do. But you should not do according to their works, for they are saying, and they are not doing." Jeez, I can't read. And they bind heavy burdens and place them on the shoulders of men, but they are not willing to touch them with their fingers. And they do their works to be seen by the children of men, for they enlarge their phylacteries, and they extend their blue fringes on their robes. And they love the first-class places and feasts and the first-class seats in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplace, and to be called rabbi by the people. But you shall not be called rabbi, for one is your rabbi, but you are all brothers. And you shall not call yourselves father on the earth, for there is one Father who is in heaven. And you will not be called leader, because one of your leader, the Messiah, or only one is your leader, the Messiah. But he who is great among you will be a servant to you. Whoever will exalt himself will be humbled, and whoever is humbled will be exalted. He goes on to say, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, who consume the houses of widows with offerings for your making of long prayers. Because of this, you will receive greater judgment. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites," or pretenders in this version, "for you shut out the kingdom of heaven before the children of men. For you are not entering, and those who are entertaining you do not permit to enter. Woe to the scribes and Pharisees and phonies, for you travel around sea and land to make one convert, and when it has happened, you make him doubly the son of Gehenna that you are. Woe to you, blind guides, for you say, whoever swears by the temple, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple is liable. Fools and blind men, which is greater, gold or the temple, which sanctifies the gold? And whoever swears by the altar, it is nothing, but whoever swears by the offering, he is liable. Fools and blind men, which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? Whoever swears therefore by the altar swears by it and everything that is upon it. And whoever swears by the temple swears by it and by the one dwelling in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it. Which that really kind of hit me when we talk about a lot of things with like the name, the proper name and grammar. Like that hit me right there with whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God. So even talking about the realm of God, you know what I mean? You know that you're talking about the creator. Like, I don't know. That was just something that hit me with that.
Yeah.
Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, imposters, for you tithe mint, dill, and cumin, and you forsake the weightier things of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. It is necessary for you to do these things, and you should not forsake them. Blind guides who strain out gnats and swallow camels. So that's another one. It's a cheap shot, basically saying you nitpick all the little things, but you're accepting of everything else. I'll
tell you what, man. I'll tell you what. The deeper I get into a relationship, the more I feel like that applies to me. You swallow the camel,
Yeah.
Straining the gnat and swallow the camel. Everything you think is so important, at some point, as you keep going down this journey, you'll be convicted of, and it'll be like, that seems so important to me. And it's I don't know why God does what he does, but he plays the longest game. And thank God he plays the longest game. We always get bitter because, long suffering is a virtue. And we don't think of it as a virtue. Because patience is a virtue as well. So, man, patience and long suffering, nobody wants to learn that, because everybody feels like it's so important right now that I get this. Like Paul, he's praying, God, remove this thorn in my side. And the Lord keeps saying no. Like, he leaves him with it, and that's, I don't know, man. I'm not, there's a lot of things that we're all struggling with that you're like, am I ever going to get free from this? Maybe. Only God knows, Yeah. And that's why it's important for us as brothers and sisters to also remember there's no more condemnation in the body, right? So it's not our place. If someone asks you, you can lovingly state what you believe the scripture says, but it's not your place to correct people, to tell them where they're wrong all the time. The Holy Spirit's doing a perfectly good job. He never needs your help, believe me. No one wants, and I think that's, it's just crazy. It's night and day. I feel like when you're a believer, all of a sudden you get self-righteous and you're just, oh, well, now it's my job to tell everyone else that they're wrong, or they haven't seen that video yet, or now UCTV hasn't talked about this yet, or you know what I'm saying? You don't know yet. It's like, bro, they're not going to learn it from you. If they're telling the Holy Spirit they're not ready to change, then they're not going to change because you insult them or try to bring condemnation on them in public, or shame them. None of that crap works. Just love your brother, your sister, and work on you. Maybe your response is what God's working with. He's letting them deal with that issue to see how you're going to handle it, and you're failing. You know what I mean?
Man. Yeah.
You ever thought about that? Jeez.
Yeah. No.
What if these people are stuck in sin when they encounter you, and it's a test for how you handle it, not them? Because all you can worry about is yourself. That's, you're not responsible for them. You're responsible for you. And the Holy Spirit is the corrector, and he does it with love and compassion, no matter what, or it's only a half truth, right? And I just think, man, these scribes and Pharisees, this is a spirit of religion, man. And this religious spirit is not just in the Catholic Church, people. A lot of people like to say, like the Mormons, they have a religious spirit, or the Latter-day Saints, or the Catholics, or they have this religious spirit, or Pentecostals, whatever. Everybody has it. This Pharisee spirit, man, it's sick. And if I deal with it in some issues too. Every one of us does. If we say we don't, we're a liar. So that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's part of the walk, and we used to call it like the baby Christian syndrome. Like you would see it like when somebody would first convert to Christianity, they would like get this. In some of the church groups, then anyways that I was around, you would see this conversion with them, and then they would run around and they would want everybody else to feel the way that they did, and they would tell everybody else they had to do the exact same things that they did. But every one of our salvation that we are going through, we're walking it out with fear and trembling. It is catered specifically for us. I mean, God is that in depth with our lives that he is catering every single detail that is going on. When we talk about struggle and we talk about the different ways that we've gotten to here, where we're at, through our lives, right? God has orchestrated all of that, even your good and bad decisions, even when the enemy attacks, right? It says biblically, it says that what the enemy meant for evil, God will turn for good, right? All of those things that happen in our lives is an orchestration of a storyline that is a grander thing. It's part of our testimony, and that's what God uses that testimony to reach out to other people. And I think, because this continues to go on, if you guys want to read more about this, about the whitewashed tombs and all this other kind of stuff, it's more chastisement towards the religious. And God doesn't want us to be religious. He wants a relationship. It's just like understanding when your child understands when you tell them not to do something because it will hurt them and they stop doing it, right? That's kind of where God wants us. He doesn't want us to follow the letter of the law blindly just because we can claim we're obedient. He wants us to understand why he's told us to do things. He wants us to understand that the reason why he's set and established boundaries is because it's for our protection. Whether it's we open doors for the demonic, or it's something that God has built into the reality, like, having multiple sexual partners, about soul ties and all kinds of things we didn't understand. And I think most of Christianity didn't understand until here recently. There are reasons why God said not to do things. And really understanding that is getting to understand the Father and his love and his caring for us. But this kind of leads on to the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's a situation that has come about recently with a close friend of ours, and he was in the chat earlier. And David, we love you, man. If you get to watch the rest of this, he had to go to bed. He went to bed earlier, but David Arthur has come out recently with. He words it a lot better. He did a video on his own channel coming out and saying that he has accepted the fact that he has same-sex attraction. And I had a pretty lengthy conversation with him the other day, trying to sympathize and empathize with his situation, and I had serious compassion for him, man, because I knew as soon as this came out, the first thing that was going to happen were a ton of people were going to attack him. And, that's exactly what happened. People were basically calling him a sodomite, that his testimony was bad and it was all lies, and his family was lying for him, and Tom Dunn and everybody was making up videos, and none of it was true. And, he's a sodomizer, he's going to hell. I mean, this plethora of whatever, slang, slurs that you can throw at somebody, they were. And these were supposed to be Christian brothers and sisters. And even
that should piss you. That should piss everybody in this chat room off. It should seriously. I'm pissed about that. I cannot stand those kind of people. That religious spirit, or whatever the hell that is. That's hell.
Yeah.
What that is. It's not right. And I feel like if it's our job to call them out too. Like, if you want to rebuke somebody, rebuke that spirit that's coming out and bashing your brother, because he's still your brother. None of us are completely free, right? You won't be completely free until you're on the other side, right? So have some compassion. And everything he said in his testimony is still true, in my opinion. And it's still you can struggle, too. You can relapse. So when I say I quit smoking in January and I went back to smoking in August, and then now I'm quit again for about, I don't know, a month. I don't remember. Am I a liar too? Am I, you know what I mean? Am I getting the same kind of backlash? Like, everything you said is a lie, he's fake, and you're a fraud. You didn't really get delivered from it because you went right back to it. And no, there's choices that you make. There's constantly lies from the enemy or questions from the enemy. did God say this? Did this really happen? And it's your job to defeat those arrows with the word and what God did say, right? And sometimes you get tired, sometimes you get stressed out, sometimes whatever the reason is, and you lapse, right? And you go back into something that seems easier, right? Or whatever whatever the feeling is, that it takes you back into this place of comfort, right? I remember Rob Baxter, and I've told this before, when we were both smoking at one of the things we were at, and someone said, you guys should quit smoking cigarettes. You're gonna, they're killing you or whatever. And this guy was eating chips and drinking pop or something. So Rob said, you're eating chips and drinking pop, bro. Those will kill you too. And he's like, Rob said, the reason I smoke is because I'm not at rest with God, in complete rest with God. And when I finally come into complete rest with God, I won't have this addiction. And I remember thinking, like, I've never even thought about it that way before, but the fact that you're wrestling with something and you're not giving it to the Lord means that you're coping, right? So think about this, every demonic attachment that you have, or demonic idol, we'll say, that you have put before God in your life, because that's what it is, right? Has to have an altar. Okay, you have to be burning something. It has to be some place where you're sacrificing or you're venerating this idol in your life. That altar has to be torn down in order for you to be able to get rid of that, right? You have to tear down the high place. There is a high place for every single thing in your life that's internal that you need to tear down. When we talk about high places and all these things, it's not always about locations in your city or cemetery or whatever. We're talking about whatever comes before the Lord. Whatever you are putting before the Lord is a high place. And every single idol or every single demonic principality or stronghold that you've allowed in has an altar built to it. You need to find it and tear it down, or you're going to struggle with these things, right? And Paul struggled with something. We don't know exactly what it was, but he kept saying, remove this thorn from my side, right? This thorn in my flesh that was tormenting him. And the Lord kept it with him to remind him that he needed him, right? And how lowly he was, and how, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes we are in these afflictions. We're saved, we're free, we belong to the Lord, but he leaves us in this place so that we wrestle constantly, and we need him to help us. He loves to be the rescuer, right? It says his power is made perfect in our weakness. He's keeping you weak on purpose. That sucks in human, human terms. Like, if someone was like, I'm going to keep you so weak, you can't even stand up. You're like, awesome. No, you're going to be like, this sucks. I can't even wipe my own butt. I'm so weak. And he's like, perfect. I want to be your caretaker. You know what I'm saying? That's a weird analogy. Don't use that ever. But God wants to take care of you. And, if you think this, it makes sense. And it says God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, right? This is one of those things that doesn't make any sense. Why would God want you weak, right? You would think he'd be building strong warriors. The stronger ones are the weaker ones that know they're weak, right? That weep because they're like, why have you chosen me? I can't do anything apart from you. And he's like, exactly, That's why Gideon didn't look like a warrior. That's why David, was a shepherd boy. He was the weak, small runt of the family. There's a reason for this. And it's not the stereotypical Captain America, thing.
Yeah. Well, this last couple of weeks of our last couple of episodes of The Chosen really kind of showed exactly how I see what the Father does, right? If you look at the story where he goes to I don't know if you guys have seen The Chosen or not, but it kind of covers, they expand upon some stuff. It's not all word for word scripture, but it does show a very human nature of, the apostles and the things that were going on around Jesus. I really enjoy it. But one of the last episodes was about the healing of the man at the Pool of Siloam. And they put that as Simon the Zealot's brother, and in that scenario, when he finally meets up with Simon the Zealot, he asks him, "Did you heal my brother?" And he says, "Yes." And then he's like, "Well, why did you heal him?" And he said, "Well, he was kind of suffering for 38 years, and how else was I going to get your attention?" Mm-hmm. And it was also that scenario that there's a centurion who's following them around, which I believe is a centurion in the biblical text who believes in Jesus and is converted. So that's also tied into this scenario. but
he's like not wanting to be though. Right. He's thinking like I'm
Simon the Zealot.
Oh, bro, he's thinking bigger. He's like, this is not just Simon the Zealot. Now he's finding like this. He's uncovering like the guys just told him it was the Messiah, and he's like, what now? Yeah. You know what I mean? Now he's like onto this big conspiracy, like I'm about to blow the lid on this whole thing, right?
Well, yeah. So it goes along that line as well. But then then there's another prong of it where what he did at the Pool of Siloam and healing that guy on the Sabbath also started a cascaded event of the hierarchy of the Jewish priesthood, of how they start passing up the information of Jesus, the guy who's healing people on the Sabbath. So there was like 4 different avenues in one action. It was so funny because it starts out with Jesus talking to John the Baptist, his cousin, right? And he said, and one of the comments in there, he says, "Oh, you're the thinking type," is what John the Baptist was saying to Jesus, because he's like, "Oh, I just say whatever comes off of my mouth," you know. And Jesus says, "Well, I'm planning this out." He's like, "Oh, you're the planning type," you know.
Yeah.
Like, and that's exactly how God works, though, guys. So this situation with David, man, I love him, and my prayers are with him that God's working this situation out. You don't go through. God says that His word doesn't go out void, guys. And if you look at David's testimony, and he was healed from HIV and AIDS and all kinds of infirmities and things like that, and he was brought into this walk. He may be struggling with something right now. There may be something that he's that God has shown him that he's working out. Okay, it's part of his walk. And he was gracious enough to be open to people and let them know where he's at. Yep. This is the same thing we do. Guys, we come to you and tell you the exact same thing. And we say, look, this is where we're at. This is where we're struggling. This is, we're trying to be real. And the immediate rebuke and attack from people when you have a brother that's struggling, casting them into Gehenna.
Here's the thing too. You know what? Here's the deal. I don't even know if we should say that, like that he's struggling. Okay. He absolutely justified in his own mind, which is exactly what we all do with our sin, why he's not wrong about this. We all do this in some way, shape, or form. We justify it according to what we see. It's here's the deal. In the beginning of the show notes every week and on the website, it says that the very first line is, this show is about getting a different perspective every week of our faith, a greater perspective of this faith walk, right? The only way you get different perspective is when you change your routines and you do something different and you encounter different things. Every single struggle, every single thing that you come up against changes and shapes the way you think about the next time. Okay, so we're all in process. That's what this is all about, right? Where there is no destination in this life. We'll all make it to the other side, right? And we'll figure it all out then, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's hard to understand. But we know that our hope is for then, not for now. And we're all in process, and we should give grace, and we should give it in abundance because it's been abundantly given to us. And he loves God. I'm not going to deny that. David is a brother. He is a brother, absolutely still a brother. And he's working his stuff out just like I'm working my stuff out, right? Aaron's working his stuff out. You're working your stuff out. Some of you don't even want to talk about the stuff you're trying to work out because you're ashamed of it, And that's the thing. The shame, at least he's open about his, That's one thing. And I'll tell you right now, there's nothing worse than opening up to someone you're supposed to be able to be safe with and then not being safe. Especially when your testimony started with rejection, and now it's going back into rejection by your new family. Yeah. Think about that.
Well, going back to what I was saying about seeing things through kingdom eyes, right, guys, is that I'm seeing whatever he's working through. I can't look at with a snapshot and say he hasn't attained such and such, or he's going to hell, or he's whatever, by looking at a snapshot of where he's at. Because our salvation is worked out through fear and trembling, and we gain our salvation all the way through enduring to the end, right? So looking at somebody's snapshot in their life, people are looking at a snapshot of my life 10 years ago, they would say I was probably going to burn in hell, right? But it looks a lot different now than what it did 10 years ago. The thing is God had to work me through a process. There were things that I had to go through that, you know, your average biblically minded Christian is going to look at and say, well, that's not from God. Well, God was clearly guiding everything in my life, or I would be dead by now. You know what I mean? He was orchestrating the situation that I had to go through. There was many circumstances that was very destructive in my life that God saved me and pulled me through.
Well, think about that. That's what we tell the people on the street. All this crap has happened to you, right? You feel like you barely are hanging on, but guess what? You're not dead. And that means somebody's got a plan for you. You'd be dead if the devil had his way.
Right.
But because you're still alive means you have a purpose, and there's something big headed your way, and you just need to just hold out a little longer, right? But man, yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, looking at the circumstances, guys, of what's happening is something he's working out. That may be one avenue or finger that's coming from this thing. But remember how we just talked about God working on multiple levels. We also saw all of these people show their true fruits who were attacking a brother, right? And maybe those are the people we need to be praying for. When I talked to David, I said, man, I'm going to be praying for those people that have rejected you, because there's something they're dealing with that has turned them over, like this hardness of their heart towards you, right? Everything that they were doing that you thought they were your friends and that they loved you and this and that, and then immediately they can just cast you aside like this. And this also exposed something for me, right? David and I, and David talks a lot about the LGBTQ community and how they take people who are victimized by society, by the system, whatever, and they try to parade them around as token, homosexuals or lesbians or gays or transgenders. Well, I saw in this circumstance the same thing happen with a lot of these churches. They were parading David around like their token converted homosexual and transgender. And as soon as he didn't fit into the position that they thought that he should, they immediately dumped him. He said that in the process of him making the video that he did where he was coming out with this, he got like 87 some text messages, and he lost 100 people from his channel who unsubscribed, and 90% of his funding dried up overnight. And he said he had things lined up to do speaking tours, and they started dropping. He said 3 of those churches that he was supposed to go to preach from the pulpit against him and against his ministry immediately. Like, we're talking within a day of him coming out with the video where he's talking about this. And maybe that was part of the exposing of this as well. Right.
It was. I mean, obviously it happened.
Is there anything different between the LGBTQ community parading him around as their token transvestite, or the church parading him around as the token?
No. And I think God is absolutely attacking or showing the spirit of religion.
Absolutely.
He's sick of it. And we should be too. We should all be sick and tired of this crap. You can't have unity and this bull crap going on. And literally, the way it says in the scripture is you can't be unequally yoked with these people. So maybe that's what the Lord's doing here. David was going to go speak to these churches, and God's probably saying, don't do it. And he's thinking, I need money. I got to go do my thing. I need to be supported. We all feel that way. I haven't worked in 5 weeks. I still feel that every morning. I'm like, man, what am I going to do? I don't have any money. I need to pray about this every single day. I can't imagine what it'd be like to be David and be full time and be like, I'm wrestling with this, and I'm going to come out with it. And literally everyone's going to hate me, and I'm not going to have anywhere to go. You know what I mean? That's crazy, you guys. It's crazy, man. And so, man, we need to pray for him. We should be praying for him anyway. We should be praying for everybody. We should have relationship with each other that we know the ins and outs of people's lives. Get real. I mean, you can have a fake relationship on the chat room, all you want, but I'd rather have the real thing, you know? I'd rather have every one of your guys' phone numbers and be talking to you on a regular basis than just to see you in the chat room and pretend everything's okay. You know what I mean?
Nobody's got time to talk to
But
Ian.
nobody has time for that. But no, but I'm just saying though, like, let's be real. You know, people in this chat were saying this is when I come to, get fed, or I get on chat rooms to get fed, or I've been rescued online. I get all that. I was rescued online. I got so much fellowship from people online, but I took it to the next step because you have to make it real. You know what I'm saying? Not that it's not real, but like you can't live off virtual hugs. You need real stuff in your life. So man, I'm not saying throw away this. I have tons of friends that I'll never see or hug ever again, probably, because they just live too far away. But the ones you need to make an effort to find those people. And guess what? There's people that you would never expect to be friends with. I can tell you right now, because as soon as I got on the mission or the Simple Street team, I met some of them. So, they're absolutely right there. You just need to go out and find them for sure. Yeah. And dude, like, I wanted to read something too, because are you done with your thought for that or no?
I'm just, there was a couple of other points to add to all that. Well, it was just, with the circumstance that David went through and his upbringing and everything that he went through in his life, guys, there's a lot of traumatic stuff. There's a lot of things most of us can't fully understand what he's been through. And most of us can't fully understand what he's struggling with right now. But it's about the compassion. It's about the understanding and knowing that God doesn't start a work in somebody that he doesn't plan on finishing. There is healing and stuff like that. One of the things that I think the failure on the people around David was that they were teaching him that once you're saved, then all of this stuff goes away. And they were pretty much forcing him to downplay and to hide all of these feelings that he was still having. And that, what he told me, it was starting to cause bitterness towards the people who were telling him just suppress it. And it was starting to build bitterness towards God. And he didn't want to have bitterness towards God. But when you're stuck in a position where you have an attraction towards the same sex, you're not attracted to the opposite sex, you're lonely and you need somebody and you're walking this alone, it makes it really hard. You're going, God, why can't you fix me? Paul was saying the same thing, said he prayed 3 times for that thorn to be removed, and God, told him that he wasn't going to remove it from him. So these same kind of situations, like, he doesn't want to have that bitterness towards God. And this is where he's at right now. He's felt freedom from that bitterness towards other people and towards God. So this is part of the healing process for David. Because the people who were around him told him that he should just suppress those feelings instead of deal with them, instead of confront them, instead of walk that out. And that was part of the failure of the people who were around him that really should have told him to a proper way to handle this, not just bury it down somewhere and expect it, hope it's going to go away, because that doesn't work. We don't bury our sin, guys. We don't bury our fleshly desires either, right? That we have to deal with these kind of things. We have to struggle through them. We have to face these things. And, this is something he's going through, and it doesn't help that the Christian community wants to bash him and stuff like that, because this is what we talk about this all the time. We keep saying we want people to come out of the elites. We want people to come out of whatever. Mm-hmm. He had an amazing story that was outreaching to a huge group of the population around us who we won't touch, which is just like what the Pharisees were saying. Is they put these rules on everybody else and everything, but they won't touch them. Right? I don't see anybody else who is commenting on this outreaching to the homosexual or transgender community, but they want to, lambaste and throw stones at the first person who comes out and says they're struggling with something. So, I don't think it's fair for us to pass any kind of judgment. What we should be doing is loving this brother and having faith and belief that God started to work in him, and that God will see it through, that whatever he's struggling with, whatever he needs, that he's lacking, that he's seeking out fulfillment for. I was in the same boat, seeking out, love and trying to fill this God-sized hole with women, booze, partying, alcohol, all that kind of stuff, was trying to stuff all of this stuff into this God-sized hole. And it wasn't until I understood God's love that I didn't need that kind of stuff anymore. it's crazy that we have this hole, and nobody is telling him, man, you got to seek ye the kingdom of God first, and everything else will fall into place. They're telling him just hide it all away and pretend like it doesn't exist. That was the failure, the first major failure on the people who were supporting and were bottle feeding him as an early Christian. They didn't tell him that these things were going to pop back up, that he was going to have feelings, and he was going to have attacks, and he was going to have all kinds of stuff. They didn't tell him any of that. They just told him that once you're new, a new creation, it's all said and done. And, we just have to trust that God is working through this situation, and that he knows what's best for the walk and the salvation of David. And, I told David, you got to walk this very carefully, because the enemy knows what our trappings are too. And we have to be very careful, and I know David though, guys, and I know that what he went through, if you guys don't know his testimony, I highly recommend going and checking it out. What he went through is not something he's going to take lightly. I mean, everything that he came from, it's just like me. I knew what the world had to offer when I was into the partying and hanging out with rock stars and sleeping with models and all kinds of stuff. I wouldn't go back to it because I know the trappings of it now. But at the time, the world tried to throw everything at me that I could possibly want. And stepping away from that now.
Oh, you took the bait.
Well, yeah, then, but now I know.
No, yeah, well, in that way. But I'm saying we're all capable. Like, dude, I'm telling you, like, ministry stuff, like, God can throw, it's not even God. It could be the enemy throwing out something that looks super tasty. Like, as far as ministry, he knows what God's called you to do. All he has to do is divert you a little bit, right? And it's important that we all recognize that we're all one decision away from messing up, yeah, like, absolutely, and taking a huge detour, right? And so I think out of all the crap that dude has went through, this isn't even a shocker.
That's not
you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not a shocker at all. The problem is this has been a weak spot, and the enemy's just worn down. That's all it is. It's just wearing and wearing and wearing, and he's hung tight for a long time. But you know what? That's the problem. When you get up to a place where people are afraid to say things, like, I'm not saying go and judge a bunch of people, but I'm saying when someone asks you, like, remember Jeff Grinnell? We had him on here, and this would be an excellent episode to refresh on in this particular situation, because Jeff, his brother's gay, and he's a believer. So Jeff's an evangelist for 40 some years, and his brother is a believer for 40 some years. They're best friends, and he's gay. And he says he's in a partnership with a man, and they're not sexual. So it's fine, right? Jeff has different, his brother knows Jeff's stance on it, what the scripture says. He doesn't believe that he can sway from it. His brother is completely fine with it and says that in his, version of it, he's fine. Right. So what do? Jeff says one of the wisest things ever. Don't clutch so tightly to the truth that you cannot grasp a man's hand in grace. Come on. That's like, yeah. That is it. That's it right there. Like, some of us are grasped so tightly with these issues that aren't our issue, that we cannot extend grace to anybody in that situation, because then it puts us in an uncomfortable place of vulnerability, and we don't like that, right? So
yeah, and I think if anybody has any issue like with this listening, maybe search out why you have an issue with what's going on, right? I mean, either you believe God and what he says, that he will work out someone's salvation with them, right? That he will hold their hand through their life and he will guide them through the Holy Spirit. Or you're slandering the situation that everything that's happened thus far is not from the Holy Spirit, which means that somebody literally got raised from the dead by nothing, right? That came out and is preaching and honors God and goes out and has testimony and has brought people to Jesus, which Jesus himself said when the apostles ran up to him and said, these other guys are out here using your name to heal people and find grace and whatever. What do we do? Should we go tell them to stop? And he says, no. Right? If they're not against us, they're for us. They're with us. Right. So
that's where I was going to go too. So when you're, I was going to go over here to Matthew 10, because I feel like that's a good place to end. It's when Jesus sends out the 12. Okay. So Jesus called his 12 disciples to him, and then he gave them the authority to drive out all impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. Okay. Then down here in verse 5, it says, these 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, proclaim this message. The kingdom of heaven has come near, which means it's right within your grasp, right? Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, now freely give. Okay? That's pretty much it. Then he says, do not get any gold and silver or copper to take with you in your belts. No bag for your journey, or extra shirts or sandals or staff or walker. Whatever town or village you enter, search there for some worthy person to stay with in their house until you leave. And as you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home deserves it, let your peace rest upon it. If not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home and the town and shake off the dust of your feet. Right? Truly, I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. So, and it says, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Too often, I think we're as shrewd as doves and innocent as snakes. That's the way it is. I mean, we're the exact opposite, right? But I love this where it says, here's what you do. When you go out, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, now freely give, right? So, are you guys doing that? I mean, that's humbling. You know, when we're like, well, like if I look back and I'm like, well, I went out to do it once or twice this week. Okay, so you're like, okay, so 7 days, you went out 2 times. That's still not a passing grade. You know what I mean? 2 out of 7. It's like, yeah, that's. So, you know, I'm not judging, but I'm just saying, in my heart, the conviction there is like, people are dying everywhere, and we're arguing over how many shifts we have to work. You know, it's like, imagine if you had 7 firefighters or 12 firefighters in New York City, and they're like, dude, there's like 35 fires right now. And you're like, I've already been on the clock. I'm not working another day. You know, like, I don't want to work. And they're like, I'm not working. And they're like, well, who's going to work? Well, I don't know. Let it burn down. We'll go back. Well, you know, we'll get it tomorrow. It's like, whatever. You know, that's pretty much what we're saying, because like these people are dying. You're trying to work your life into the mandate that God gave us. He gave us a great commission, and somehow you're trying to and this is me talking, trying to fit your T-ball and your other stuff inside this mission, you know. And I get that you have to be a family man, you have to do all that stuff. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying sometimes I feel like our priorities are messed up and we justify it. And that right there is a super big sin in my book. Like, you know, we don't have enough time in the day to criticize everybody else's crap when we're afraid to face what's going on in our own lives. That whole get your house in order thing, that is a huge thing. It's not just, oh yeah, I double checked and we have a emergency escape plan and we're all believers. Trust in God, brother. Praise God. You know, that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this get real checkup. You know, like, where's all my time going? Where's all my finances going? Is it going to the kingdom or is it going into my kingdom? You know what I'm saying? Like, these are big things that are addressed in scripture, and we just don't want to look at them with our own life on the line. You know what I mean? We don't want to put that focus on us. Like, you know, you remember in school when they would be teaching something like, I need someone to come up front. And you're like, Johnny will do it, you know, and then they bring Johnny up and then they pretty much shame him to be like the subject of, you know, whatever it is that you're talking about. Now, look at where Johnny's wearing his pants. Is this right or wrong? You know, it's like, oh man, nobody wants that lesson to be on them. You know, like, you come up here, Ian, we're going to critique your entire life and tell you where you messed up and everything, but also so we can teach other people. You would be fine with that if we got to search and siege everything in your house just to go through it and give an illustration for somebody else? No, you wouldn't. But that's what gets your house in order means, right? We love talking about stuff. We just don't like doing it. And I think, well, I don't remember what the verse is where it says, and you will know them by their fruit. And the fruit is cast out demons, heal the sick, raise the dead. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it tells you you're supposed to be doing. And if you're not doing it, then it's literally, I don't care how we justify it anymore. It doesn't matter. It's wrong. You know what I mean? It's like when you're in math and you show your work and it's wrong. You don't get half credit because you showed your work. You got it wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, well, my daughter actually said this to me. I got it such and such a, I'm like, how do you get that? And she's like, well, I showed my work. So she gave me, I wanted half credit, but she wouldn't do it. I'm like, how would that make any sense? Like, you showed the wrong work. You know what I'm saying? That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, people are so focused on this crap, and yet they're getting wrong answers on the test and their work is wrong, but they expect half credit. It's like Common Core math here, people. Come on. This is terrible. And I don't mean to be so judgy or whatever on this show tonight, but there comes a point when it's just, you're just fed up with the crap that you see, and somebody's got to say something, man. And so, man, I'll tell you, I just want to be an encourager. Go meet somebody on the street. That's where the water is. You know, when you're fisher of men, you go to where the hungry and the needy and these people that are desperate, where they're at, you go to them. I'm not talking about try to find some show with 12 followers and pretend their chat room's really needy of a believer with your superior intellect, so you can put these big posts in their chat room and they'll be like, dang, who's this new subscriber? They're geniuses. I'm talking, go to the freaking place where you live. I know everybody here has got a person where they're sitting on the corner with a bucket and a cardboard sign that they made with a marker. I don't know how they ever mysteriously get these markers, but you ever thought about just pulling over and talking to them for a little bit? Go out of your way to get to know somebody. You might be surprised. And I just think we should just leave it at that. You might be surprised if you get to know somebody. The house church thing, it'd be real simple if you just went out and told somebody, like, if first of all, you just told them that God loved them and you wanted to pray for them. Ask them if there's anything at all that they need prayer for. That's what we do when we give them food downtown. We're like, here's a hot dog, man. You want a pop? They're like, yeah, like anything you want to pray for. You could pray for this. So we're like, oh, okay. And then that's it. You know, half of them don't stick around. They just roll, but they know where to go, right? They know where to go. And some of them do stick around because they've never had anybody ask them that before. And they're the hardest ones. Usually you don't expect the one that stays to stay, you know? So we often, and it's a normal thing. I think the average person makes a decision on, you know, you judge somebody within like 5 seconds, you know, completely, whether you like it or not, it just happens. It's like a thing. You're like, can I trust this person? I don't think so. You know what I mean? It's all kinds of stuff goes into it, but psychologically you judge someone within 5 seconds, maybe even less. But what if you were pleasantly surprised, you know, by somebody? I know every time I meet somebody that I'm completely shocked by, I get super convicted about that. It's like, how many of these guys did I walk by yesterday when I was like sure that it wasn't going to go well? You know what I mean? And then I kind of got forced into this conversation, and I'm really thankful, you know, that I did. It's just humbling, I'll tell you. But if you never put yourself in a spot where you can be humbled, you're missing out. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Melly said she wants to see people raise the dead and heal the blind and stuff like that. I tell you right now.
Oh, we saw some healings too this weekend. I'm not to cut you off. There was a woman, boy, this lady, she walked up on a walker. She pulled up in her car because she saw us on the road. And they all had there's kids out there with signs up, you know, saying Jesus loves you and you need prayer, or whatever. I don't even know what the sign said, but there was a bunch of them. This lady pulled over and she wanted prayer. She was a believer, but she wanted prayer. She started crying. Boy, this lady, man, I'll tell you, these people are fiery. Like, I mean, the black people just do it. They do it at another level, everything. Dude. She got up out of that walker and Joel was praying for her, right? And she said, I have a blocked artery here. My back hurts and my legs, and I'm on this walker. Man, she started jumping up like, woo! You know, she was going crazy, dude, speaking in tongues and like shouting, yelling, I'm healed. Jesus is my healer, like yelling it. I mean, how many of you people would do that? You know what I'm saying? This lady was lit and she just pulled over. She like drive-through healing during COVID. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy, man, but it pumped up everybody. Everybody was like all fired up. And then there's another lady that got prayer for her knee. And I saw her, I was talking to somebody else, but I saw them cheering for her and she was bending down and stretching it out like farther than she'd been able to do it before. It ain't all about the hype, guys. Like, it's just powerful when you see God move and you're right there, or you put your hand on somebody and the next thing you know, they walk away when they shouldn't be walking away. And you're like, did I have something to do with that? You know what I mean? Like, was I just here when this person got their legs back, you know, or what? It's just crazy, man. It's exciting, dude.
Yeah, man. I have a special love for the African-American community, man. Cause I honestly, with everything that I studied with genetics and stuff like that, I think they're a set apart people. I think that there's something special about them. It's why they've endured so much persecution and why the world either wants to feed them health, wealth, you know, that's why the media has always been about, you know, drugs, money, sex, all of that kind of stuff. And it's directed at them, or the world has tried to beat them down, suppress them, throw them into the ghettos, all of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I think that the world realizes the power they have. There's a faith in that group of people and a spirituality in those people that is just amazing. And the world has done nothing but try to destroy that. So again, that all goes back to the whole thing. What I was just going to comment with, what Melly was talking about was the faith is the biggest thing, guys. Nobody is healed without faith. Like, you look at all of the miracles that Jesus did. He had that person walk out in faith, or open their eyes in faith, or pick up their bed mat in faith, or they came to him in faith. You know, there's the one thing, the lady who had the bleeding issue, and she touched his garment, and he felt the power leave him because she had so much faith that if she could just touch the hem of his garment, that she would be healed. You know, I mean, man, faith is so imperative. You're not going to see healings if, for one, the people who are praying don't have the faith that it's going to happen, and the person who's getting prayed for doesn't have the faith. God has already set up all of the tools for us, guys. We have to believe that they are going to work.
Well, believing means going there too, because like I said before, with the rescuing of the rats, some of these rats that need rescued don't have any comprehension of ever being rescued. They don't know what it's like. Right. The ones that are wild, they have never been domesticated. They don't know any different. They're not expecting. They look around, they see no way out. They don't expect a rescue. They don't have it in their imagination. They don't have an imagination for that. But
give them a little bit of hope, man.
If you gave them hope, just a little bit, maybe that prayer, that's what it takes to get that. Maybe they're on the verge of suicide and they don't tell you, but the interaction that they got with you, even if it was simple, and you just said, the Lord loves you. He knows where you're at. He's got you. Like, he's going to get you. Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe that's all it takes to save that person, to get them to hold on just a little longer. You know,
Paul said that he wishes, above people speaking in tongues, that he wishes that everybody prophesied, because prophecy was meant for the unbeliever. The unbeliever, the one who lacks faith. When you prophesy, when you know the Father, and you know what his wishes are for other people and for the masses and everything, when you know that, right, prophecy is easy because you know the same pitfalls that you have, the same graces you're saved from, are the same thing that can be
spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus.
Right. And that's why we prophesy over other people, because it gives them a glimmer of hope, a light at the end of the tunnel. That'll make them paddle for 2 more days, guys. That's what it's all about. You know, so, you know, especially with everything that's going on with the suicide rates, with the attacks on children, the agendas that are being pushed that are changing the mentalities of even a normal child into accepting a destructive and wicked nature in this world, right? The agendas are hardcore. People need hope, guys, especially after all of last year. God has given us the perfect opportunity to recover. And the world is going to seize it, right? That's why they keep saying we're moving into the roaring 20s. The world's going to seize it. Come out and party, celebrate. We're out of COVID-19. We're all this. You know, the paranormal community is going to pop back up. I just saw Ghost Hunters is come back together, and they're going to start a new season. I'm like,
bro, the Skinwalker. Have you seen the Skinwalker Ranch show?
No, it doesn't surprise me, dude. All the paranormal stuff's going to resurge. It's because people are desperately seeking for spirituality. They need something, and the world is going to give them the most false sense. Dude, the alien stuff. What is going on with the alien stuff right now? The full disclosure, it's all I'm seeing on Facebook right now is just all this alien. Dude, I'm telling you, this is the same. We're getting a whole relapse of what happened in the turn of the century, guys. We and that's when
listen. And we're like what? And we're about to hit the roaring 20s. So in 20 years, we'll be at the height of occultism. Like that's what happened in Europe. The spiritual occultism was at an all-time high during the time of the rise of the Nazi Party.
Yeah, and then what did you have? Everyone. In the 40s? Then we had the
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It led to this point where it became like the thing to be involved in supernatural, spiritual, seance type thing, all kinds of stuff. It was at its height in the 40s, and that's what led them in. That's what allowed the SS and all this different stuff to happen when they got into the Aryan, the whole esoteric stuff that was behind this Nazi Party. It's cycles. So if we're about to go in the roaring 20s, we got like 20 years and maybe less. Everything might be going faster now. I don't know. But, if we look at it like that, because if you think about it, in the beginning of the 1900s is when you had Blavatsky and the book, the externalization of the hierarchy, and that whole prophecy where she said the vibration was going to change in 100 years. If we don't do it now, we're going to do it in exactly 100 years. And that was 2017, right? And so, we're like right on track. It's the exact same cycle we've seen throughout Scripture, except now when the Lord would raise up a judge, that's you.
Yeah. Well,
right?
At the turn of the century too, that's when the, say what you will about the Azusa Street revival, but the tent revivals blew up in the 20s and in the 30s and into the 40s, guys. This is we're right back. We're talking about these tent revivals. We're in this zone right now, guys.
But it's going to be different. It's going to be different. It ain't going to be the same. It's already different. Listen, there's that point where God says, we have too many men. Or when Jesse brings out 11 sons and they're all the mighty ones. And he's like, and Samuel's like, yeah, he ain't here. And they're like, what? Because he wants that weak guy. The weak ones that are on the street right now that have no hope, they're the ones. You're going to have to go get them. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to go out to the field to get the shepherd boy. But that's where they're at, I think. I truly think that we're looking at this harvest right now is for the last days harvesters. And they're going to be hardcore, and there's not going to be very many. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we said.
Especially when you've got 43% of this generation's population that have no concept of God, or do they care at this point?
They need to see power on display. And I'm telling you, someone that comes out of a place of no hope and all of a sudden gets hope, and they don't have the bondage that you carry with mental, barriers and things, where it's like, well, I've never seen this happen, or I've been a Christian for this long and this has never happened. They're going to come in and be like, it says right here that I can pray for a dead person and raise them from the dead. And they're going to try it. And they're going to have the faith to do it because no one's ever told them they can't do it. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. And I'm like pumped up. I can't wait to meet these guys, because I know that it's the craziest thing to think that what if a brand new believer challenges me to have greater faith?
That's already
happened. Have you ever thought that?
Times, man.
I know, but I'm saying I think that I'm looking for mentors. And you always think like the mentor you're looking for is this guy that's been in it for a long time. He's got 4 doctorates and he's theologically, sound and all this. I'm looking for the guy with the greatest faith. I don't care. Like my theology is fine. I don't need to make everything in order. I just need to be able to do what I need to do. And I feel like if I had greater faith, I could do it. And so if I see somebody that has zero knowledge, and they have the boldness to fight a lion with their bare hands, you know what I mean? Or to punch a bear in the skull and kill it over their dad's sheep, right? Whatever the case is, that's the guy that I want to find, because I'm going to be like, I'm telling you what, I want to be around that guy. I can learn the scriptures on my own. I want somebody that's bold, that's, not afraid to go and do this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what we're coming in on. That's the harvest that's happening right now. And the reason we can't find people is because they're not even here yet. We're looking around for something that God's saying he's about to do. And we're like trying to fit into this mold that doesn't exist yet. And we're like, what are you doing, God? And it's a long game. So he's literally like, I'm almost there, but it requires us to go do something first. That one verse, the yoke of bondage is broken under the anointing. And I literally believe that all of us right now are still in bondage in some way. And the only way out is through walking into that anointing and being under the anointing of the Holy Spirit in a weakened state, which is how it operates, right? Through your weakness, he's made strong. So when we go out of our comfort zone into something that's uncomfortable and new and not familiar, and we have zero clue what we're doing, that's when he operates through you. And through that experience is your shackles are broken off.
Yeah.
So, and watch me, or what's Paul say? Follow me as I follow Christ.
Right.
That's me. Follow me as I follow Christ to the best of my ability. I'm going to do my best.
Yeah. As we're running over here, guys. But yeah, if I can say anything, guys, is just, believe and have faith in the situation with David Arthur. Send him your love, guys. We just trust that God is going to work out David's salvation in David's way. And however that looks, we're going to let it go, and, we just want to send him love, guys. And, people telling him, hey, I love you, man. You're still my brother. God bless you. All of those things, guys. We got to send love, and we got to trust in God that God knows what he's doing in every circumstance. This David is just a perfect example of how quickly Christians can turn on one another when we don't agree on. I'm sure all of us have seen something like this on the internet, especially. So, guys, just remember compassion, love, just like I was talking about the Pharisees thing. It says, you guys, the Pharisees will do all of these little things, but they miss the weightier parts of the law, which is justice and grace and mercy. That's what we need to remember where we're at, right? Because we all have a plank in our eye about something, and I hate seeing people point fingers at somebody else when they got three fingers pointing back at them. And usually what you recognize and hate in somebody else is something you're dealing with and struggling. The most homophobic people I've ever met, when I actually got down to brass tacks talking with them, had homosexual experiences, and they hated it because they were trying to cover it up and bury it. And that's the truth, man. We want to attack somebody else and point out their sins so that we can cover ours up. So, guys, it's all about love. It's all about grace. We love much because we were loved much. We forgive much because we are forgiven much. That's how it works. That's how the kingdom of God works, according to Yeshua himself in his parables. So, I don't know. Anything else you want to add, Ian?
No. Pray for me. I'm trying to find a way to do full-time ministry and not go back to work. I really don't want to go back to work, man. I really don't. But, it is what it is. I know that 11:59 is at the end of this week. So he always comes through at 11:59. I just feel like I was feeling pretty confident that this was the 11:59. Maybe it's not.
Sometimes it's 12:01.
It's actually never 12:01. It's just our clock is messed up. Yeah. we didn't set our clock right or something. I don't know. But, or, that's what I was saying about patience and long suffering. And if I ever start guessing right, I'm going to be in trouble. I'll tell you that. I won't know what to do with myself. I'll be afraid I'm a prophet or something. Start guessing right on stuff. Anyways, I would say if you're not following Simple Street, go find Simple Street Ministry on Facebook. Start following them. I'm posting a ton of crap up there. Every time I'm out with them, I'm going to be videoing. I'm going to be putting little videos together to get you guys some info to show you what's happening on the streets Joel and I are going to be working together, and I'm going to help him with the website, and I'm going to help him with some video. What do you call it? Marketing, I guess, to try to get them paid, because they don't make any money at all. They're doing all this crap for free. Like, they're doing so much, man. Like, you would not believe how much they're going and going and going. And they literally are just like that verse that we read, where don't take anything extra. Like, you literally just give it all away. Yep. And they're trying to, they feel the same call that I'm feeling. It's going to be full-time ministry. We don't know what the heck that means, because we're all kind of full-time now, and we don't get paid, but somehow we have to make a living. And you know what I mean? Imagine what you could do if you didn't have to worry about that. If you didn't have to worry about going to work or trying to do all that, how much more could you get done? Especially when you're talking about what these people on the street need is presence. Imagine if you could be in some capacity in the streets all day long, as a light, as a mentor to these kids in the neighborhoods that are killing each other. You know, if you could save lives just by being there. You know, we all know that we carry this presence with us. If we would learn to walk holy and humbly and release that presence and change the atmosphere of wherever we are, imagine that. You know, is there a price for that? Is there a amount of money that you would pay to save lives in the hood? You know, I think this is the idea that we're trying to, I really want to, I feel called to help them at least get free from having to work. Joel was saying, like, he got a couple big donations, and he's like, now I can take Fridays off and do full-time Fridays. And he's like, if we get another big donation, maybe I'll take Thursdays off for the next month. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, man, we need to make these guys full-time. You know, this is doable. We just have to get the word out. And I think I'm going to just start doing videos for them and helping them get the word out, because it's amazing to me, the censorship, because we're in the same town with all these people. We're blasting Facebook feeds. People are sharing it. You always go on, you find somebody and you're like, oh, we have 12 friends in common. I don't even know this person. You know what I mean? And you're seeing videos and, they're sharing. It's like, how do we share all these things? And yet people don't even, half the people that we're friends with don't see them. You know what I mean? It's crazy to me. We have to figure out how to do this, and we're going to do this. Try to make it to where people can see what's happening in the streets, and it will help too. We have a very solid, awesome guy running for mayor, believer. We also, I found out, have another guy running for city commissioner who's a believer. Both of them super powerful dudes. So that would really help to get the city in line and get, the needs addressed that need to be addressed. And I think, like, God's doing something major, and it's not going to look like it ever has before. And we need to start funding. If you can't be in their streets, we need to find a way to give to help the people that are in the streets stay in the streets. So, I mean, that's my challenge. If you have, if we all just have to begin to think about finances differently. Like, if you're living in abundance, the reason you have that is to pour in to be a blessing to someone else. If you're not living in abundance, the reason you're not living in an abundant life is because you aren't faithful, and that's hard. But you're not being faithful, because the Bible says if you're faithful, He will give you. The blessings just come to you. You know what I mean? So for some, there's something going on that's restricting. That's what your focus should be. Why am I being restricted on this? I'm finding this hard right now. I'm fighting through this myself. And I'm like, I can't physically or financially give, but I can give of my time. It's worth something, right? Apparently it's worth something to my company to have me on, so I'll just work hourly for free, whatever you call that. Pro bono or whatever, but I'm just, I'm instead of spending time doing what I like to do, I'm just going to do things that benefit the kingdom, because I can. And I feel great about it. That's the thing. I don't feel bad about it at all. I love it. I love being able to help and being able to do that and bless people with the giftings. Like people are like, you made another video? I'm like, it took me like 3 hours. Literally, I'm pretty fast at it and I already have it in my head. It's like pops right in there and I just make it happen. So I got to film some more stuff. It's going to be super cool. We're going to try to get all these testimonies out so you guys can hear it, because I'm telling you, these guys, some of these guys on the team have some radical stories, dude, that you'll be like, dang. So that's the exciting thing that I'm doing. So I guess until next week.
Guys, thanks
next Wednesday.
For everybody joining us and being active in the chat. Remember, like, share, subscribe if it's your first time. Here comes my daughter. She knows it's time.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's time.
You want to say hi to everybody? Say hi.
I will.
All right, guys. We love you, and may Yah bless and keep you guys. We will see you guys next Wednesday.